Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 4 of What If Naruto Got a System. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. 7 years before present day. Hyuga clan. The Hokage had summoned the head of the clan to make his presence known in the council to welcome the Kumo ambassador. This grave issue required the full attention of the Hyuga clan leader. Yet, as I sat listening to the report, my focus drifted. Across from me stood a man with a long, angular face, pronounced cheekbones, and a strong jawline. His dark hair was neatly combed back, and his thin, arched eyebrows lent him a distinguished air. Staring at him was like looking into a mirror. This was my twin brother, Hisashi Hyuga. His expression was stoic, but even through the emotionless facade, I could sense his discontent. Who could blame him? He stood before the main family, yet he was part of the branch family, marked by fate and bound by a duty not chosen by him but imposed upon him. My gaze shifted around the room, settling on the faces of the main family of the Hyuga clan. They listened intently to Hisashi's report, their eyes occasionally flicking to me, awaiting my response. I despised the terms main family and branch family, yet these were etched deep into the very essence of our clan, as fundamental as our Kekkei Genkai. The Hyuga structure was much like a dynastic caste system, meticulously designed to secure leadership and safeguard clan secrets. By tradition, the leader's firstborn was groomed to lead, while the subsequent children, despite their potential or desires, were marked with the cursed seal, destined to protect and serve the main family. This seal was not just a mark, it was a shackle to a fate they never chose, only removable through death. This system, conceived during the early days of our clan's formation, aimed to quell power struggles and maintain a definitive chain of command. The elders and those in the leader's line, the main family, were few, a small but potent segment of our clan. The others, despite bearing the same blood, were designated as the branch family, their roles determined before they even understood what it meant to belong to this complex familial web. As I contemplated this, the weight of leadership felt heavy on my shoulders. The traditions that bound us were as constricting to me as they were to those marked by the branch seal. I found myself constantly in a battle between upholding these ancient practices and the growing urge to reform them, to soften the rigid lines that had divided my family so deeply. My heart weighed heavily with the burden of responsibility, constantly seeking a way to bridge the deep divides within our clan. Why? Because I longed to have my brother by my side, not as a servant but as my equal. I dreamed of a day when no member of my family would lament their fate or wish they had been born first. I wanted to eradicate the cruel randomness of fate that dictated our lives. Clan head, what precautions should we implement? The first elder, my father, broke the contemplative silence, pulling my thoughts back to the present concern, a matter demanding immediate attention. I scanned the room, feeling the weight of every gaze fixed on me. A security detail will consist of 3 members. The first elder, Hisashi, and Hikari Hyuga, I announced, deliberately including Hisashi. I could sense the disapproval from many in the main family, their discontent palpable in the air. Yet, it did not sway me. This team will be responsible for protecting the council during the upcoming meeting with the Kumo ambassador. With heightened security, we will ensure that our family remains safe during this delicate time of diplomatic engagement. Dismissed, I concluded, rising from my seat. I gestured to Hisashi, signaling him to follow me. As we made our way through the serene Hyuga compound, a palpable silence stretched between us like a chasm. It hadn't always been this way. I fondly remembered days when Hisashi and I would talk endlessly like true brothers, joking about trivial family matters, such as how my wife's cooking was atrocious but we all had to nod and sing praises, lest we face her wrath. A nostalgic smile tugged at my lips as those memories flickered through my mind, but the smile faded quickly. Those days were long past, overshadowed by the roles fate had thrust upon us. Lady Hinata, you are doing great, a voice broke through my reverie. I looked up to see 2 children training a short distance away. A boy clad in black with a leather mesh shirt, his long hair a testament to his heritage, this was my nephew, Neji Hyuga. Beside him, earnestly following his instructions, was my daughter, Hinata. It was heartening, at least, to see that our children shared a bond that Hisashi and I had lost. A sudden surge of killing intent snagged my attention, snapping me out of my thoughts. My eyes quickly found Hazashi, his gaze intensely fixed on the training children. The malice in his eyes was unmistakable, directed not at me but at my daughter. Brother, I growled under my breath, my fingers twitching involuntarily by my side. As if sensing my alertness, the killing intent vanished, replaced by fear. Hazashi quickly bowed and retreated a few steps. I understood his frustration all too well. His son, Neji, a prodigy who mastered the gentle fist technique before even turning 5, was bound by the same cruel fate that had divided us, destined to serve my daughter, the heir of the Hyuga clan. It was a bitter pill to swallow, and I could empathize with Hazashi's bitterness. However, the moment his resentment endangered Hinata, he crossed a line that could not be ignored. The children are doing great, aren't they? Neji is so cute teaching Hinata the basics of the gentle fist. You should see them, I said, trying to lighten the mood. I turned to find my wife, Hanami, approaching with a gentle and serene expression. Her long, straight black hair cascaded down her shoulders, complementing her fair skin. Her large, soft eyes, small, straight nose, and slight smile conveyed warmth and tenderness as she cradled our baby. Hello there, Hazashi-kun, Hanami greeted, bowing slightly. Hazashi returned the bow, his gaze briefly drifting to the baby in her arms. Congratulations on bringing a new member of the branch family, he said, his words laden with an unintentional sting. I felt my blood boil at his remark. It was true, painfully true. My daughter Hanabi, born into this world with a destiny already marked by the same cruel traditions that had dictated so much of our lives. It hurt deeply, as only a father's heart could understand when faced with the harsh realities imposed on his children. Another reason for my resolve to reform the Hyuga clan's traditions. Hanami, be safe. I'm heading to the council meeting, I told her, trying to mask the turmoil inside me with a tone of calm assurance. Don't worry, just come back safe, she responded, reaching out her hand towards me. I took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. Though we seldom expressed our love openly, the strength of our bond was palpable in that simple touch. Also, I'll make some tempura for you to eat later, she added with a smile. My stomach churned at her words. Now I was truly scared. Cooking was not among Hanami's many virtues. With a wry smile, I looked over at Hazashi, trying to shift my focus. Let's not keep the Hokage waiting. Yes, Hazashi agreed, his tone neutral as he nodded towards his son, a brief greeting before we would part ways. Konoha's council room. Today, as we forge this peace with Kumo, we lay the foundation for a prosperous, secure future for Konoha. I rolled my eyes, skepticism brewing within me as I listened to the third Hokage's diplomatic speech. His words felt like nothing more than a veil, skillfully drawn to obscure the true motives behind these negotiations with Kumo. After the devastation of the Kyuubi attack and the death of the fourth Hokage, Konoha found itself drowning in debt. A peace treaty with Kumo promised an influx of trade and missions, vital lifelines for our beleaguered village. Hokage-sama, I greeted the venerable leader of Konoha as he gestured toward a man with brownish-red hair and slightly tanned skin, adorned with the Kumo headband, clearly the Kumo ambassador. A pleasure to meet the great leader of the Hyuga clan. My name is Hikaru, the man said, extending his hand toward me. As I took his hand, a frown marred my face. There was something unsettling about the way he looked at me, particularly at my eyes, but diplomatic decorum required I mask my discomfort. Konoha was in no position to afford missteps in these delicate talks. The moment our hands connected, a peculiar sensation passed through me. I could feel a slight tug at my chakra. As quickly as it came, it was gone when he released my hand. Puzzled, I wondered, what was that? I watched closely as the Hokage introduced Hikaru to the other clan heads. Curiously, he didn't offer his hand to any of them. Why? What made his greeting with me different? Was it something to do with my Byakugan? Amidst the pleasantries and formal introductions, my mind raced with suspicion. The brief encounter had left me uneasy. Could there be more to this ambassador than meets the eye? Is there an ulterior motive behind his specific interest in the Hyuga? Midnight. I sighed deeply as I approached the Hyuga compound. The meeting with the ambassador had been nothing more than formalities and small talk, with the Hokage handling most of the conversation. It was all so tedious. Stepping into the main family's compound, I was greeted by confused looks from the guards. Hiyashi-sama, didn't you just arrive here a few minutes ago? My heart sank at those words. What do you mean? I demanded, activating my Byakugan to scan my home from a distance. No. The sight that my eyes revealed caused a surge of panic. I propelled myself forward with a shunshin, breaking through my door with such force that it splintered under my touch. The scene inside struck me with a horrifying chill. Hanabi was sleeping soundly, blissfully unaware, while Hanami lay slumped against the wall. Blood painted the surroundings in a macabre tapestry, a sword impaled through her stomach, pinning her in a grotesque display. The cursed seal on her forehead glowed ominously in the dimly lit room, casting an eerie greenish light. To think the clan head would marry a branch member, a cold voice remarked. Illuminated by the cursed seal's light stood a man with a sack slung over his shoulder, filled with clothes to disguise his identity. Inside the sack, I glimpsed Hinata, bound and helpless. A shame that the mother couldn't be my breeding cow, the daughter will do. I saw red at those words, fury and horror intertwining as primal rage took over. Gentle step. Twin lion fist. Chakra surged from my palms, and I deftly shaped it into two roaring lion heads. I lunged forward, my heart fueled by a deep, seething need for vengeance. The sounds of flesh tearing and bones breaking filled the room as my arm ripped through the man's chest, my hand clutching his heart, feeling it pulse its last as his blood warmed my forearm. I had avenged my wife's murder with a single, devastating blow, yet the satisfaction in the man's dying eyes haunted me. It was as if he had welcomed death. Suddenly, I felt a presence enter the room. My Byakugan confirmed it was Hizashi. Brother, he called out, his voice breaking through the turmoil swirling within me. Let's make sure the kids are okay, I responded quickly, pushing aside my own grief. There wasn't time to mourn. Not yet. Gratefully, I watched Hizashi hurry off to ensure Hinata was safe, his actions lifting a small burden from my shoulders. Left alone, I turned back to my wife, her lifeless form before me. The world seemed to narrow, the sounds of chaos around fading into a distant hum. Slowly, I sank to my knees beside her, the cold floor a stark contrast to the warmth she once radiated. Gently, I gathered her into my arms, her head resting against my chest as if she might wake at any moment and smile at me with eyes full of love and reassurance. Tears welled up, blurring my vision, a stark reminder of the reality that she would never open her eyes again. My fingers trembled as I brushed a stray lock of hair from her face, the familiar softness bringing a fresh wave of pain that cut through my heart like a blade. My love, I whispered, my voice quivering with each word, I don't know how to do this without you. The weight of her absence pressed down on me, suffocating and immense. I was supposed to be the strong one, the stoic leader of the Hyuga clan, always in control. But in that moment, the facade cracked, and all the composure I'd clung to crumbled away. A tear escaped, tracing a hot path down my cheek, followed by another, and then another. Here, in the private sanctum of our shared sorrow, I was not the Hyuga leader, not the stoic figure carved by duty and tradition. I was simply a man who had lost the love of his life, a husband mourning his wife. Hizashi quickly opened the sack to discover a knocked-out Hinata inside. Relief washed over him, grateful that the young girl had been spared the sight of her mother's tragic end. His heart ached for his niece, and a surge of protectiveness filled him. Fueled by growing anger toward whoever was responsible for this chaos, Hizashi moved toward the assailant. His mind raced as he pondered how someone had managed to infiltrate the Hyuga compound. The very notion that anyone could sneak past a Hyuga was absurd. Yet, the chilling events of the night proved that not only had someone breached their defenses, but they had also inflicted harm upon his family. With a swift motion, he pulled off the mask. The face that was revealed stopped him cold. All that could escape from his lips in that shocking moment was a whispered, "Oh no. Is this a punishment from God?" I wondered, standing before the main family, which remained eerily calm under the circumstances. My heart was heavy, too burdened to process much else. I had already lost my wife tonight. What more could be taken from me? Then, the appalling truth came to light. The hidden assailant was Hikaru, the Kumo ambassador. Upon examining his body, it was discovered that he was a wielder of the thousand-face jutsu, a forbidden technique that allowed its user to change their face and chakra signature to mimic someone else. It became clear that Hikaru had sneaked in by impersonating me. The motives quickly unfolded as the Kumo delegation issued an ultimatum. They demanded my head, or else they would declare war. Given Konoha's already fragile state, engaging in a war with Kumo was untenable. If war broke out, Iwa and Kiri would surely seize the chance to eliminate Konoha from the geopolitical landscape. We were cornered, desperately disadvantaged. It was evident that this entire ordeal had been a setup, a sinister ploy to obtain my body and, by extension, my Byakugan. My father, stepping forward, broke the heavy silence. Clan head, the council has decided to replace you with Hizashi. What? I screamed, my voice echoing with disbelief and betrayal. But before I could even begin to oppose the decision, the grim reality was forced upon me. Hizashi stood in front of me, his expression somber. Suddenly, I felt his palm press against my chin. A jolt shot through my skull, rattling my thoughts violently. The world spun wildly as darkness clawed at the edges of my vision. Every sound muffled, every light dimmed, and a cold numbness spread through my body. The last thing I saw was Hizashi's pained eyes as unconsciousness claimed me, pulling me down into a void where I was powerless to change my fate. A week later, numbness cloaked me like a heavy, suffocating blanket. The third Hokage, in a gesture meant as an apology, had awarded a significant expanse of land to the Hyuga clan to compensate for our losses against Kumo's machinations. Yet, this gesture did little to ease the hollow ache within me. Happiness seemed a concept as distant and foreign as peace in these troubled times. My wife was gone. My brother was no longer here. And what was I expected to do? Celebrate over some parcels of land? Revel in the supposed strengthening of the Hyuga clan? I snorted at the thought, a sound more of scorn than anything resembling amusement. You can take all the land back, just give me my brother and wife back, I muttered under my breath, my voice barely a whisper lost in the vast, empty chambers of my heart. I tried to cry, to release the pain in some way, but it seemed even my tears had abandoned me, leaving me with nothing but a dry, searing sense of loss. Why aren't you here to hate me? I whispered to the silence of the room, my gaze falling on the final letter my brother had left me. My fingers trembled as I picked it up, the paper feeling far heavier than it should. Dear Hiyashi. In such a brief period, we've faced immense tragedy. Kumo has proven itself ruthless, orchestrating schemes driven by fear of the Hyuga clan's greatness. Despite everything, there's an honesty I need to share with you, brother. I've always resented you, not for who you are but for what you represent and for the circumstances that forced me into a life I never chose. It's this cruel world that binds us with chains we can't control. I hate what you, the clan head, represent, the destiny you embody, and the future it spells for my son, Neji. Yet, despite it all, you are still my brother, and there's no one else I'd rather have in that role. I've proposed a plan to take your place. Perhaps, in doing so, I can break free from the Hyuga's shackles, from the cursed seal that has marked my life. I choose this path freely, so please, don't harbor any guilt. We'll meet again in another life, you pain in my ass. Until then, goodbye. From Hizashi. I had lost count of how many times I'd read the letter from Hizashi. Its words were etched into my memory. As I sat there, lost in thought, the door creaked open. I didn't even bother to look up. Sir, we need you to perform the ritual, a voice called out, flat and emotionless. I sighed heavily, the sound carrying all the weight of my resignation. Rising from my chair, I walked out of my office and headed towards another room where a grim scene awaited. Several members of the branch family were holding down Neji, my nephew, as my father stood by with a bowl glowing with a greenish light, the cursed poison of Bashi. This ancient poison, used to create the cursed seal, trapped the poison within it. Upon the death of a Hyuga, the seal would break, releasing the poison and causing the dojutsu to disintegrate. The longer the poison stayed sealed, the stronger it became. Even a whiff of it was agonizing. The seal, It was supposed to ensure obedience and protect the Byakugan. What a joke, I thought bitterly as I dipped my fingers into the poison. You murderer. You killed my father. I'll kill you. Neji screamed at me. His words should have cut me, but I felt nothing. My father moved to strike him, but a single look from me stopped him in his tracks. He retreated silently. I said nothing as I began to create the seal on Neji's forehead. The others held him firmly in place, their grips unyielding. There might have been a time when I would have rejected this cruel ritual, but that time had passed. The world had broken me. I no longer had the strength to fight against these barbaric traditions. Fuan, I muttered, activating the seal. Neji's screams filled the room, echoing off the walls, piercing through the heavy silence. I stood there, my expression blank, my heart void of any feeling. The cries of pain from my nephew were just distant noises to my numb senses. Neji's screams began to haunt me, a grim chorus that resurfaced whenever a rare moment of peace dared to whisper in my ears. They were like a curse, a bloody reminder that would not fade into the silence of my mind. Father, a small voice pulled me from the echoing torment. I looked down to see Hinata in the gentle fist stance, her wide eyes seeking approval. Her stance was all wrong. Her shoulders too tense, her feet improperly aligned. Hinata, your form lacks precision. Your stance is too open, vulnerable. Tighten it up, I said sharply, my words slicing through the air with a cold precision that mirrored my internal frost. Hinata's eyes welled with tears, but I remained unmoved as I stepped forward. Again, I commanded. Every time I looked at her, visions of her mother's lifeless body clouded my vision. I wouldn't allow that fate for Hinata. She needed to be stronger. Driven by a relentless resolve, I pushed her harder, demanding more. Even if my heart ached with each tear she shed, even if my soul felt frayed with each sob that broke from her lips, I continued. This harshness was the only gift I could offer, a chance for her to survive in a world that had shown us no mercy. I paused as Hinata crumpled slightly, clutching her wrist in pain, her small face streaked with tears. My heart wrenched at the sight, yet my voice was steady, imbued with a harsh necessity as I told her, you are the heir to the main clan, Hinata. It's high time you carry yourself as such. They say pressure makes diamonds, and in this cruel forge of life, I resolved to transform Hinata into a diamond. Even if it meant breaking myself, even if it meant her tears mingled with mine in the shadows of our home, I would not relent. She would rise, strong and unbreakable. Present day. Good evening, clan head, came the bows from all around me as I acknowledged them with a mere nod. Good evening, father, Hanabi greeted, bowing deeply. I responded tersely, evening. Today was the day of the semi-annual meeting, a day I dreaded not only for the tedious politics of the main family but also for Hinata's consistently underwhelming performances. Hinata Nisan has been working really hard, Hanabi said in her defense. I snorted dismissively. Despite my hopes, Hinata had failed to live up to them. It seemed as if she didn't even want to try. My disappointment in her was profound. How was she supposed to take over the clan with such a lackluster attitude and skill set? How would she survive in this harsh world? My mind replayed all her past performances, each more disappointing than the last. From the corner of my eye, I saw Neji approach. If only you were born first, Hazashi, I found myself thinking. Despite the limitations imposed by his status in the branch family, Neji had proven himself far stronger than anyone in his generation. I sighed as Hinata approached, my gaze inadvertently falling to her hands. She was wearing the Nakote. Clan head, should we remove her weapon? No, I responded firmly. At least she was trying something different. As I watched, Hinata and Neji assumed the gentle fist stance. Pathetic, Neji muttered, eyeing the Nakote. Expecting Hinata to be easily subdued as usual, I was taken aback when she took a deep breath and activated her Byakugan. Hajime. Neji lunged forward with a palm strike, which Hinata countered with a twin-finger jab. It was a risky move, given that a palm could output more chakra, but as their strikes met, I saw something remarkable. Hinata's Nakote extended the range of her gentle fist, the needle-like chakra protruding from her claws. Although Neji's palm strike carried more chakra, Hinata's precise finger jab managed to poke a small hole through it. Normally, such a minor breach in a gentle fist strike would be inconsequential, as the opponent would still face the overwhelming force of the remaining palm strike. However, this time was different due to one crucial factor, the Neko Te. If Neji didn't act, his hand would be impaled by the metal claws. In a split second, Neji's stance shifted, and I recognized the technique immediately. He twisted the remaining chakra in his palms to create a dome of chakra around him. Hakusho Kaden 8 trigrams palms revolving heaven. It wasn't fully formed, but it was sufficient to send Hinata reeling backward. Father, that was Kaden. I simply nodded in confirmation. The Kaden, or 8 trigrams palms revolving heaven, was an advanced technique traditionally taught only to the main family members who had reached the rank of Jonin. Yet here was Neji, a mere genin from the branch family, not just executing but reinventing the technique on his own. His talent was undeniable. How dare you use the main clan technique? An outraged member of the main family spat at Neji. How dare I? What do you mean? I learned that technique on my own, Neji retorted, his glare sharp and defiant. The tension escalated when the main family member reached to activate the cursed seal, intent on punishing Neji right there. Without hesitation, I threw a kunai, pinning the man's sleeve to the wall. Who allowed you to act in my presence? The room fell silent as the man backed down, clearly overstepping his bounds. Thank you for your intervention, clan head, but I must ask, why is the main family so offended by my self-invented technique and not offended by the fact that Hinata here violated the tradition of our clan? Our beautiful gentle fist ruined by some pathetic weapon, Neji continued, his voice dripping with scorn. You brat, I thought as I noticed the room's attention shift towards Hinata. She looked down in shame, overwhelmed by the dozens of disapproving glares. Clan head, the first elder, my father, began to speak. I could already anticipate the words about to spill from his lips. Talk of tradition, the need for punishment, his usual rhetoric. I wanted to shout, to defend my daughter, but I held my tongue. Neji, dismissed. Everyone else, dismissed. Hinata, follow me, I commanded, rising from my seat. Now, my voice boomed across the room. Everyone bowed and quickly complied with my orders, leaving the hall in an orderly fashion. As the crowd dispersed, I motioned for Hinata to stay close. I saw that Neji was looking at Hinata's Neko Te, and for a second, I saw a flash of recognition as if he knew who had made the weapon as he left. An awkward silence enveloped us as I sat behind my desk in the office, watching Hinata stand there, eyes cast downward. You can sit down, I offered gently. And no, I have brought shame to the clan, she stammered. I wanted to disagree, to tell her she had done well, but the words felt foreign on my tongue, sending a chill down my spine. How long had it been since I had complimented my daughter that it now felt so unnatural? The thought terrified me. Hinata, you, I started, struggling to find the right words. My voice faltered. Can I see that weapon? Hinata nodded and carefully removed the Neko Te, handing it to me with a grip that lingered a little too long, as if reluctant to let it go. The realization that my daughter might not trust me stung deeply. I examined the Neko Te. This is well crafted, I commented, noticing the chakra metal embedded in the claws. Did you have this custom made? Hinata shook her head, hesitating before she spoke. A friend gave me this as a gift. A friend, huh? I echoed, my mind briefly going blank before a self-deprecating thought hit me. Of course, she has friends, why wouldn't she have friends? Yeah, my friends are talented, Hinata added, her voice stuttering slightly. They are strong. The way she emphasized talented and strong felt as though she was justifying her friend's worth. As the family head, such considerations might matter, but as her father, I only cared about whether her friends were genuine, liking her for who she was, not because she was the heir to the Hyuga clan. Was it possible that Hinata saw me more as the clan head than as her father? The thought pained me more than any physical blow could. I looked at the weapon again and asked, can you tell me why you used this? Anno, my friend said that I needed to be more aggressive, and the Neko Te. Hinata tried to explain, visibly nervous. I nodded, grateful she had friends who helped her address her shortcomings. Why hadn't I been able to do that? You did good, I managed to say, offering the Nakote back. Hinata stopped, the weapon clattering to the floor as she stared at me, shell-shocked. Tears began to well up in her eyes, and as they fell, each one seemed to pierce my heart. Hanami, I failed you. In my quest to make Hinata strong, I had pushed too hard and broken her. To think just saying, you did good, is enough to get such a reaction. Oh, Hamura, I am a horrible father. I picked up the Nakote and handed it back to her. This weapon usage was unique. You were able to improve. That deserves a reward. I retrieved a scroll from my desk. This is an advanced gentle fist technique known as the gentle step twin lion fist. I believe this technique can complement your use of the Nakote and the gentle fist. I'll be personally teaching you this. Thank you, clan head, Hinata said, bowing. Clan head, That's what I deserve. I thought sadly, wishing she would call me, father. I turned away so she couldn't see the tears in my eyes. Your class will be at 4 in the morning. Be ready. Yes, she replied softly. I glanced at a family photo on the wall, my eyes lingering on Hanami's image. I'll do better this time. 3 origami figures lay scattered on the floor, their paper folds worn and slightly creased. Hanabi, only 7 years old, sat with them, her lavender white eyes flickering with a playful curiosity rare for her usual demeanor. She picked up the largest figure and whispered, "Hello there, father, are you going to train us both today?" When alone, Hanabi's childlike innocence emerged, a stark contrast to the rigid etiquette required of a Hyuga. She used her origami to play out the family scenarios she yearned for, knowing she could reshape these paper dreams as easily as they tore. The Hyuga clan wasn't known for warmth, and her family felt the strain acutely. Her father, Hiyashi, was ever the strict instructor, particularly with Hinata, who seemed to dissolve under the weight of his expectations. Hanabi saw her sister as a fragile figure, buckling under the pressures of lineage and expectation. I hate this, Hanabi thought, yearning for a father who was just that, a father, not a relentless trainer. She wished for a sister who wasn't a bundle of nerves, for a family environment that didn't require constant perfection. The events of the previous day lingered in her mind. Hinata's use of the Nakote during her performance had sparked murmurs of dissent within both branches of their family. The branch family mourned Neji's fate, bound to a servitude he didn't deserve, while the main family lamented the alteration of traditional techniques. Yet, no one dared confront Hinata directly. Hiyashi's protection was absolute. That morning, however, Hanabi witnessed a rare moment. Her father and Hinata training together in a way that seemed different, almost tender. Hope flickered within her. Maybe things are changing for the better. But what could she do to be part of this change? Breaking traditions seemed a daunting task, especially when even Hinata's slightest deviations drew such ire. The idea of challenging the status quo herself filled Hanabi with dread. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. Hastily, she crushed the origami figures and turned to see servants peering curiously through the window. Her response was automatic. Her Byakugan activated, scanning beyond the compound walls. There, she caught sight of Hinata slipping away quietly, an unusual spark of confidence in her step. Sister has changed, Hanabi realized, an envy swirling within her. Can I be close to my big sister, too? She pondered, the thought of a deeper bond with Hinata both exciting and frightening. She rarely saw her sister venture out, but recent changes suggested Hinata had found something, or someone, that sparked this transformation. Go after her, a voice in her head urged. Hanabi hesitated. What if she discovered Hinata's secret? Could understanding it bring them closer? Could it earn their father's affection for her as well? Logic offered no answers, but her heart whispered promises of possibilities. Rising to her feet, resolve hardened in Hanabi's young eyes. Okay, let's find out what Big Sister's secret is. Hanabi tiptoed behind Hinata, maintaining just enough distance to remain unseen. Every shadow became her ally, every alleyway a brief respite from the risk of discovery. She darted from behind one building to another, her heart racing with the thrill of the chase and the fear of being caught. As they ventured further from the familiar, pristine streets of the Hyuga compound, the surroundings began to shift. The houses grew smaller and more weathered, the streets narrower and less maintained. Hanabi's brow furrowed in confusion. Why would Nissan come here? The vibrant marketplaces and well-kept gardens of their district gave way to the ramshackle charm of Konoha's poor quarters. Here, children played with balls on the dirt-filled streets, and the air carried the mixed scents of street food and the earthy dampness of overworked soil. It was a stark contrast to the sterile perfection of their home. Why would the heir of the richest clan in Konoha bother with such a place? Each step deeper into the area added a layer of doubt about what she knew of her sister, and perhaps, what she understood of their clan's role within the village. She watched as Hinata paused occasionally, exchanging warm, if somewhat shy, smiles with the locals. This Hinata seemed different, more relaxed, more genuine than the pressured heiress back home. Is she here because she wants to be, or is there another reason? As Hanabi crouched behind the wall, her curiosity turned to alarm. Activating her Byakugan, she scanned the apartment's interior, expecting perhaps to find Hinata in a simple meeting or a benign visit. Instead, she found herself staring at anomalies that set every nerve on edge. First, there was the bug on the balcony, pulsing with an amount of chakra that rivaled some genin she knew. What kind of bug is that? But it was the second anomaly that truly shocked her. Inside the apartment, a chakra signature blazed like the sun, a vast, swirling mass of energy that dwarfed even her father's formidable reserves. It belonged to someone who appeared no older than Hinata. Who is this guy? Peering intensely, she tried to lip-read their conversation, catching snippets of dialogue that only deepened her concern. Finally, the E-rank missions are over. 50k Ryo. How much of it did we spend on the house? The words echoed in her mind, each syllable intensifying her fear. The implication hit her like a cold wave. Was Hinata involved in some sort of scheme? Was this person using her to earn money? The notion of her sister, so gentle and unassuming, being exploited in such a way filled Hanabi with a protective fury. She began to piece together a narrative that made her stomach churn. This has to be some sort of manipulation. Hinata's too naive, too kind to see when someone's using her. That chakra, it's too powerful for someone good. He must be a chakra pervert, a manipulator. The more she thought about it, the more it made sense. He's definitely taking advantage of her. Why else would she be here, in this part of town, with someone like that? I can't just watch this happen. I have to save Hinata. The chakra-laden bug that Hanabi had briefly glimpsed earlier took to the air, its mission clear as it veered towards a secluded rooftop. There, hidden from any observer's eye, 2 Anbu Black Ops agents lay in wait. The bug landed deftly beside them, ready to fulfill its role as a messenger. Report on potential heiress Hanabi. Observed shadowing, Naruto Uzumaki. Sarutobi heir also identified. Orders requested for elimination, one agent whispered. His companion responded without hesitation. Negative on the kill order, he declared authoritatively. Maintain surveillance. Escalate reports directly to Lord Danzo. Affirmative, the first agent confirmed, his voice barely a murmur. Quest. Paying back debt. Status. Successfully completed. With the dedicated effort and the invaluable assistance of Tenten, you've managed to earn the 50k Ryo required to pay for the damages to Mr. Higashi's shop. Rewards granted. Plus 500 reputation with Higashi shop. A loyal ally with Tenten. 1000 express. Special item from Higashi shop. Naruto beamed at the notification that popped up on his screen. Finally, no more E-rank missions cluttering his schedule. He was free to celebrate. Naruto. Huh. He turned, finding Hinata in a cooking apron, her brows knitted with worry. Be careful while you're cutting those. Got it, Naruto replied, his focus returning to the vegetables he was chopping. Today was special. They had planned a party at his apartment. It was just him, Hinata, and Tenten, though Tenten was yet to arrive. Hinata, I didn't get to ask, but how did the competition thingy go? Naruto asked as he sliced through a bell pepper. Hinata chuckled softly as she mixed batter for fried fish. Well, the thingy went better than I expected, she replied cheerfully. Did you kick some ass? No, but my father seemed to respond well to my aggressive new style, Hinata responded, a hint of pride in her voice. He has also started teaching me a new technique. That's good to hear, Naruto commented as he finished chopping. And we are done. I'm surprised you didn't cut your hand, Hinata remarked, half teasing as she glanced at his neatly chopped vegetables. Hey, I know how to cook, Naruto defended with a puff of his chest. Really? So what? Ramen? Hinata teased, feeling more relaxed and comfortable with Naruto after everything they had been through. A lot of stuff actually. Well, let's make some of this stuff then, Hinata proposed, her smile widening. Naruto rolled up his sleeves. I'll show you the tastiest tamagoyaki you've ever eaten. I look forward to it. Just wait until I finish up with the tempura, Hinata said, turning her attention back to the sizzling pan. Okay, but when is Tenten gonna be here for the party? Naruto asked, checking the clock on the wall. I think she's busy with her team, Hinata replied, flipping a piece of fish in the pan. Speaking of team, tomorrow is graduation day. You excited? I'm both excited and nervous, Hinata admitted, her voice slightly muffled by the noise of frying. Don't worry, you'll do great, Naruto reassured her, frowning slightly. Looks like we're out of eggs. I'm going to get some, okay. Hinata gave a small nod, her focus returning to the fish sizzling in the pan, but her concentration was broken when she felt a gentle touch on her cheek. She turned, meeting Naruto's gaze, her eyes wide with surprise. What? Naruto smiled, his thumb brushing away a dab of batter that had found its way onto her cheek. You had some batter here, he explained softly, just cleaning it up for you. Their eyes locked for a brief, quiet moment, filled with a comfortable warmth that made Hinata's cheeks flush a deeper shade of red. The moment was fleeting, however, as the sound of the fish demanding attention snapped them back to reality. Naruto stepped back, giving her space to tend to the frying pan. I'll grab some eggs, he announced, pulling out his frog wallet with a playful grin. He paused at the door, turning to look at Hinata, who was still blushing from their little interaction. Don't burn the fish while I'm gone, he teased gently, and with a laugh, he slipped out the door, leaving Hinata with a smile that lingered long after the door had closed. The kitchen felt warmer, the evening filled with a lightheartedness that made the simple act of cooking together something truly special. Training grounds. Tenten's excitement at meeting Kurenai, one of the few female jonin and a renowned genjutsu specialist, had quickly turned into discomfort. The conversation kept steering back to her recent flurry of E-rank missions, a topic Tenten found oddly pressing for such a high-ranking ninja to probe into. Just as she was trying to navigate this awkward discussion, a welcome distraction appeared on the training field. Oh, young Neji, you've arrived. Let's start with some youthful warm-ups. Guy-sensei called out enthusiastically, balanced upside down in a handstand push-up alongside Lee. But Neji didn't share their enthusiasm for warm-ups. Ignoring his sensei and teammate, he walked straight toward Tenten. Normally, his approach might have flustered her, but the intensity in his eyes signaled that something was amiss. Without a word, Neji launched a swift two-finger strike directly at her. Tenten instinctively reacted. Drawing her katana, she executed an EI attack, a quick draw strike that lit up with bluish flames. But before their attacks could meet, Guy-sensei intervened, his strong hands catching Tenten's blade in Neji's wrist. Almost simultaneously, Kurenai ensnared Neji in a subtle genjutsu, halting any further aggression. Neji, we are teammates, this is most unyouthful behavior, Lee chided. Guy, I think it's not Tenten who needs someone to talk to, Kurenai observed quietly, her eyes flicking between Neji and Tenten. Start talking, Fate boy, or else, Tenten demanded, her voice firm as she reignited the blue flames along her katana. Might Guy exchanged a worried glance with Kurenai, both sensing the need to de-escalate the situation. The brief exchange of attacks between Tenten and Neji had already shown dangerous potential. Had they not stepped in, Neji's gentle fist might have exploded Tenten's heart, and her EI strike could have decapitated Neji. How dare you bastardize the great Hyuga's gentle fist? Neji had a way of alienating people with his belief in fate, that everything in life was predestined, and nothing could change it. Rock Lee saw this as a challenge to overcome. Tenten, on the other hand, mostly ignored Neji's fatalistic views. She thought he was somewhat cute, and she knew he was just echoing the strict doctrines of the Hyuga clan. However, even Tenten had her limits. She could tolerate Neji talking about his beliefs, but when he started attacking her character and accusing her of underhanded motives, that crossed a line. She understood that everyone had their own views, but it was entirely different when those views were used to question her integrity. That was something she couldn't just ignore. Ha! You think you can change your fate by giving your cheap products to someone as weak as Hinata-sama, Neji sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. Tenten's face flushed with anger. In one swift motion, she raised her hand to slap him, but Neji blocked it effortlessly. What the hell do you even know? Neji's expression didn't waver. What? Am I missing something? You lost to an academy student. And clearly, the last month of you doing pathetic E-rank missions was just to pay off some bet. Let me guess, you scammed Hinata and Naruto by giving them your cheap products so that you don't have to finish the bet. The accusation hit a nerve. Tenten, barely containing her rage, was ready to lunge at Neji, but felt Lee's strong hands pulling her back. Tenten, please, we are a team, we must not fight, Lee pleaded. No, he is clearly looking for a fight. I'll give him a fight, Tenten snapped, her eyes blazing as she stared Neji down. Neji, unfazed and icy as ever, retorted, a loser like you is fated to be defeated by me. Dreaming of being such a great kunoichi like Tsunade, yet not being able to do anything useful. Like your delusions, you are fated to be irrelevant. Neji, stop this unyouthful behavior right this second. But the brief pause only gave Tenten a moment to catch her breath and retort. Hey, at least I am doing something for my dreams. Unlike you, fated to be a groveling servant to the main family just like your dead father, a loser who would put his life down for a family that shackled him. With a snarl, Neji wrenched his hand free from Guy's grasp. The air thickened as Lee gasped and Kurenai's eyes widened in shock. This time it was Guy who held Neji back as he lunged forward, his fists clenched. What's wrong? Tenten taunted, her voice harsh. Mad that I made the supposed loser Hinata into someone formidable. Oh, come on, let's drop this excuse about me bastardizing the gentle fist. You don't care about the honor of the Hyuga clan. Why would you? They shackled you, limited your talent, took away your father. So why bother defending them? Is it because you are their servant, or? Neji's Byakugan flared to life, the veins bulging around his temples as he tried to intimidate her into silence. Tenten wasn't fazed by Neji's display of strength. Her voice grew sharper, slicing through the tension. Or are you just upset that Hinata has changed for the better? You always preach that people can't change, that it's their fate. What about Hinata, then? She changed, she improved, so what does that say about your beliefs? They're nothing but the words of a servant too afraid to stand up for himself. Neji's face contorted with anger, his hands trembling. Hinata is brave because she chose to change for the better, unlike you. You're just a caged bird, claiming to want freedom but too scared to break free. What would your father think of you now, branch servant Neji? In a burst of rage, Neji released a powerful Kaden, breaking free from Might Guy's hold. Guy hadn't expected such an extreme reaction from his student. Seizing the moment, Neji lunged at Tenten, who was ready. She quickly channeled chakra into a storage seal on her tongue and spat out a Senbon needle towards him. Neji's eyes widened in shock as a blur of movement filled his vision. Before he could react, a wave of red-hot pain exploded across his face, and the world flipped upside down. The cool, hard ground pressed against his cheek, and he realized he was down, pinned. Guy had slammed him to the ground. As Neji tried to regain his bearings, pain throbbed through his face, his head ringing from the impact. Guy, moving swiftly, plucked the airborne Senbon from its path. With a flick of his wrist, he tossed it aside just as the explosive seal ignited. A loud boom resonated through the air, accompanied by a brief flash and a small cloud of smoke. Neji felt the vibrations through the ground, adding to his disorientation and the sharp ache that now dominated his senses. Tenten smirked slightly, her frustration evident. Oh, come on, sensei, let fate run its course, she taunted, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Guy's foot firmly on Neji's neck kept him pinned, his eyes burning with fury but his body unresponsive to his desire to retaliate. I am done with this team. Lee's grip loosened on Tenten, a mix of shock and confusion on his face. Tenten, please, he started, but she was already walking away. Tenten. Kurenai called after her, but Tenten paused only to look back at Guy. I'll submit my resignation to the Hokage's office. I'm done with this team. If you want me back, sensei, he goes, she said, pointing towards Neji. Without waiting for a response, Tenten strode off, her resolve clear. She had her pride, her dignity, and she wouldn't compromise that to stay in an environment where she felt antagonized. Lee looked to Guy, lost for words, but Guy simply placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. Let her go. Sometimes, we all need time to rekindle our youthful spirit. As Lee nodded, accepting his master's wisdom, Kurenai glanced upwards, a half-joking plea escaping her lips. Oh, God, please, just give me some normal genins to work with. Tenten slumped onto a nearby sidewalk, her shoulders sagging under the weight of Neji's cutting words. A year of teamwork, of risking their lives together on missions that could have been their last, hadn't that earned her some shred of respect from him? Yet there she sat, wondering why she had ever expected anything different. Could it really be that in Neji's eyes, only his feelings mattered? That he alone had the right to judge and decide what was correct? Her hands clenched into fists on her lap as she fought the urge to cry. No, she told herself, tears would not fall today, not for him. Neji was not worth the pain that now threatened to spill over. She breathed deeply, closing her eyes, the cool air brushing against her face as she worked to calm the storm inside. Tenten was curled up on the sidewalk, her knees pulled tightly to her chest, when Naruto's voice broke through her swirling thoughts. Tenten, why are you here? She glanced up, seeing him holding a carton of eggs. His expression shifted from curiosity to concern. What happened? He probed gently, setting the eggs aside and kneeling beside her. Nothing, Tenten muttered, burying her face deeper into her knees. But Naruto wasn't convinced. Then why do you look like you're about to cry? Tenten hesitated, then the floodgates opened. She recounted everything. Neji's harsh words, the confrontation, her frustration. As she spoke, Naruto listened in silence, his brow furrowing. Neji sounds like a pompous tem, he finally said, breaking the quiet with a blunt assessment that drew a snort from Tenten. He then gently lifted her chin, ensuring their eyes met. Tenten, Hinata is thankful to you because she's improving. I'm thankful because I can now pass the genin exams, and your father is proud to have you as his daughter. Naruto continued, the words of someone who doesn't see your value as an ally, as a friend, as a teammate, are the words of a blind man. Tenten couldn't help but chuckle at the irony of calling a Byakugan user blind, but the truth in Naruto's words resonated deeply within her. She felt a warmth spread through her, buoyed by his belief in her. Don't let someone who gave up on their dreams talk you out of pursuing yours. Tenten nodded, her heart lighter than it had been moments before. She took a deep breath, letting his words sink in and fortify her resolve. I want to lay down, she declared suddenly. On the sidewalk. Yes, so get to it, she directed playfully. To what? Just sit here, she insisted. Reluctantly, Naruto sat down, and Tenten laid her head in his lap, staring up at the sky through the silhouette of his face. They lay in comfortable silence, the world around them fading to a mere backdrop. After a few moments, Naruto broke the silence. Tenten, we have a party to go to, he reminded her. Tenten opened her eyes, a playful glint appearing. Hey, Naruto, can I touch them? Touch what? He replied, puzzled. Your whiskers, she said, her fingers already reaching towards his face. Sure, but why? Naruto chuckled, slightly embarrassed yet amused by her curiosity. I don't know, just curious, she shrugged, her fingers tracing the unique marks on his cheeks. To her surprise, Naruto purred, a sound so unexpectedly fox-like that it made her smile. Cute, she thought, her heart lighter than it had been all day. Hanabi was quietly making her way through Naruto's apartment building when she suddenly stopped. A voice snapped her attention. Hey, you, why are you spying on my Nisan? Turning around, Hanabi was met with a peculiar sight, a camo curtain that was supposed to blend with the environment, except it was all wrong, clearly visible and awkwardly square. The curtain dropped, revealing a boy with short, spiky brown hair and a prominent forehead protector emblazoned with the Konoha symbol. His large, round eyes and notably thick eyebrows added to his determined expression. You villain! I won't let you assassinate Naruto Nisan, for I am the great Konohamaru of Konoha, the boy declared, hurling a shuriken with such poor aim it sailed off the balcony. Hey! Who threw that? Came a shout from below. Hanabi's expression remained unimpressed. Ha! I knew it! You are a formidable villain, so I'll use my secret jutsu, Konohamaru announced, puffing up his chest. Waroke no jutsu! He shouted, and with a puff of smoke, transformed into a tall, curvaceous brunette shrouded in strategically placed clouds. Without a word, Hanabi walked over and swiftly kicked Konohamaru in a way that instantly dissolved his transformation, leaving him crumpling to the ground while clutching his groin. Ah! Demon! Demon! Konohamaru cried out in pain, tears streaming down his face as he rocked back and forth. Hanabi just shook her head. As the door to Naruto's apartment swung open, Hinata stepped out, her expression curious about the commotion outside. From the other side, Naruto and Tenten appeared. What's going on here? Naruto Nisan, help me, this demon is trying to kill me. Konohamaru wailed from the ground, pointing dramatically at Hanabi, who stood with her Byakugan activated. Come at me, chakra pervert. I'll save my sister from you. Hanabi yelled, charging at Naruto, who agilely dodged, causing Hanabi to crash into the wall and knock herself out. Yada! You defeated the demon. Konohamaru cheered from his spot on the ground. Naruto, shaking his head, picked up the unconscious Hanabi and turned to Hinata. You know her? Sheepishly, Hinata nodded. She's my little sister. And who are you? Tenten inquired, eyeing Konohamaru suspiciously. Tenten, Hinata, this is Gigi's grandson. And I am going to be the next Hokage after Naruto Nisan. Konohamaru declared proudly, causing Tenten and Hinata to exchange bemused glances. Konohamaru, shouldn't you be grounded? Yes, but I came to give you good luck for the exam. You will 100% pass. Konohamaru tried to change the subject, his enthusiasm undiminished. Naruto, Hinata, and Tenten smiled at his cheerfulness, then Konohamaru's curiosity got the better of him as he turned to the girls. Now, who are these? These are my girlfriends, Naruto said confidently, puffing out his chest. Konohamaru's jaw dropped, while Tenten and Hinata's faces turned bright red. Girlfriends. Both thought, hearts pounding wildly. How did you manage to pull that off? Well, these two are my friends, they are also girls, so girlfriends, Naruto explained, oblivious to the typical meaning of the term. You are so dumb, Nisan, Konohamaru retorted. I'll show you dumb, you brat, Naruto threatened as he handed the carton of eggs to Tenten and rolled up his sleeves, ready to chase the mischievous boy. I think I heard Gigi calling for me, Konohamaru quickly said, darting away with Naruto hot on his heels. Left behind, Tenten and Hinata looked at each other and burst into giggles. At the table, the aroma of party food wafted through the air, sushi rolls neatly arranged, skewers of yakitori with just the right char, bowls of fluffy, seasoned rice, and platters of crispy tempura. It was a feast that made Naruto's mouth water, especially since he had only dreamed of such spreads at the celebrations he'd heard his classmates chatter about. As he took in the lively scene, Naruto felt a warmth spreading through him. Tenten and Hinata were caught up in their own world, their laughter mingling with the festive atmosphere, seemingly lighting up the room and making the food even more appealing. Off to the side, Hanabi and Konohamaru were huddled around an old game console, their competitive spirits in full swing. Hanabi's face was set in a fierce frown, determined not to let Konohamaru win. Naruto chuckled to himself, recognizing that fiery determination, Hanabi was just moments away from either throwing Konohamaru out of the building or finally beating him at the game. Naruto. He turned to see Tenten holding up a green bottle, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Sake. Tenten's smile widened. Tomorrow's a big day. You two officially become genin. So, in celebration of your first step into the real world, let's give you your first taste of alcohol. Hinata bit her lip. But is that allowed? Old enough to kill, old enough to drink, she declared, popping open the bottle. The rich, potent smell of sake filled the air immediately, drawing a deep breath from Naruto as the aroma tickled his senses. Tenten poured sake into 3 cups, handing one to Naruto and another to Hinata, keeping the third for herself. So, do we say something? Naruto asked, lifting his cup awkwardly. Toasts, Tenten corrected with a pause, watching Naruto's confusion. He looked puzzled. I'm going to get the bread. Why? You said toasts, he replied earnestly, only to see Tenten giggle. No, Naruto, I meant a toast as in a cheer, not bread. Naruto blinked, his cheeks flushing. Oh, he chuckled. He held the small cup more confidently now, ready to mimic whatever Tenten did next. Tenten raised her cup, her expression turning a bit more serious. When we drink sake like this, it's traditional to make a toast, to honor a moment, celebrate a victory, or just wish for good luck. Naruto nodded, his focus completely on Tenten as he absorbed every word. He noticed Hinata beside him, holding her cup with both hands. Let's make this toast about stepping into new beginnings and facing challenges with courage, Tenten proposed, her gaze shifting between Naruto and Hinata. To new beginnings and courage, Naruto echoed, lifting his cup slightly higher. Hinata smiled softly, to new beginnings and courage. They clinked their cups together gently, the soft sound crystallizing the moment. Naruto took a cautious sip of the sake, the flavor bold and warming, spreading through him like a comforting fire. His eyes widened in surprise at the strong taste, but he welcomed the heat. Hinata's reaction was more subdued. She sipped her sake with a slight grimace, unaccustomed to the alcohol's strength. Naruto's eyes widened as Tenten gulped down her sake, clearly more accustomed to the sharp bite of alcohol than they were. Naruto watched her for a moment, then turned his attention back to the array of food laid out before them. He picked up a piece of tempura, the crispy batter light and golden, and bit into it, the crunch satisfyingly loud in his ears. Speaking of graduation, what are you going to do? Go in, do awesome, come out as Genins, Naruto declared confidently. No, I meant after the exam, Tenten clarified, skewering a piece of yakitori and examining the char before taking a bite. Go home, Naruto replied, still confused. Beside him, Hinata delicately picked up a bowl of fluffy rice. Oh, you guys don't know. I forget they don't tell you to build up the tension for the second exam, Tenten said. Second exam. Yeah, so Genins are divided into 2 ranks, solo Genins and team Genins. Academy graduation gives you the rank of Genin, but afterwards, when you are introduced to the Jonin leader, they will give you a test to determine if you are worth their investment, Tenten explained, pausing to sip her sake. Investment? Hinata asked, her voice tinged with confusion as she paused in her eating, a piece of sushi halfway to her mouth. Yeah, Jonins are very important to the ninja village as a whole because of their power and skill. So when they take on a Genin team, they are essentially substituting their work hours to train a bunch of newbies. If the newbies don't show what the Jonin are looking for, then they fail the Genins. Genins that pass are called Team Genins or Genin teams, Tenten elaborated. And what about the Genins that fail? They are called solo Genins, and they are essentially thrown into what's known as the Genin reserves. As you know, being a shinobi is a dangerous job, and the mortality rate for Genins is 80%, Tenten said gravely. Naruto and Hinata both sucked in a breath at that statistic. The Genin reserves mostly do E ranks and train since they can now access the shinobi library in the Hokage Tower until the Chunin exams happen, where Genins can apply either solo if they have a B rank jutsu in their arsenal or just team up with other reserve Genins, Tenten finished, setting down her cup with a soft clink. Naruto chewed slowly, his mind racing with the new information. The sushi tasted less vibrant now, and even the char on the yakitori seemed to echo the burn of uncertainty. Beside him, Hinata quietly resumed eating her rice, her expression thoughtful and a little troubled. Will we pass? Hinata asked quietly. You will definitely pass, Tenten replied confidently, her gaze then shifting to Naruto with a playful shrug. Hey, Naruto protested with a grin, feigning hurt. He knew Tenten well enough to catch her humor. Tenten's expression turned serious as she continued, both of you have the capabilities to pass, but the second exam is different. Each Jonin has their own criteria. Some look for teamwork, some for power, others assess the genin's attitude or skill. What about Bushy Brows Sensei? He looked for our determination. That even if we are up against insurmountable odds, will we give up or stand tall? Tenten said, her voice tinged with nostalgia. She paused, seemingly lost in thought for a moment, then shook her head slightly as if to clear it. What do you recommend we do? Try to ask your teacher about your team, Tenten advised, leaning back slightly in her chair. Why? Well, genin teams are chosen based on the overall evaluation of the skill and grade of the student, alongside recommendations of teachers who noted down compatibility between genins while they trained. Asking your teacher can give you a general idea of who your teammates are and what you all bring to the table, Tenten explained. You can either talk to your potential teammates or just train, she concluded. Naruto and Hinata nodded, absorbing the advice. Tenten's eyes brightened as she offered, I think you two will pass both exams with flying colors, and to make the process a bit sweeter, I'm going to make you two custom weapons for the second exam. How does that sound? Hell yeah. Naruto's outburst inadvertently caused Hanabi, who was engrossed in a video game with Konohamaru, to lose her focus, and the game. As Hanabi glared at him, Naruto winced slightly but quickly recovered, offering her a cheeky grin. Do you need some tips? Hanabi huffed, clearly not amused, while Naruto signaled for Konohamaru to go not easy on her. Konohamaru gave a knowing nod and dove back into the game. Meanwhile, Hinata toyed with her rice, each grain seeming heavier under the weight of Tenten's information about the upcoming exams. Her focus was broken when Tenten addressed her directly. Hinata, Tenten called, capturing her attention. I'm going to need to do some measurements for your Neko Te. Hinata looked up, a small smile breaking through her nervousness. Okay. Tenten, do you have some more sake? Naruto asked. You'll regret it if you drink too much. Come on, it's a party, Naruto cajoled, trying to lighten the mood. Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you, Tenten relented, reaching for the bottle. She poured another round of sake into their cups. Morning. You have slept on your couch. HP and CP are fully stored. Naruto's head throbbed painfully as he blinked open his eyes, the light too harsh for his senses. The room spun slightly, a telltale sign of his first hangover. Groaning, he pushed himself up from the couch where he had apparently collapsed last night. His stomach churned uneasily, a reminder of last night's indulgence. As he looked around, the aftermath of the party was evident. Empty snack plates and cups littered the floor, a few overturned. Streaks of spilled sauce stained his table, and there was a pile of napkins thrown haphazardly in one corner. The smell of stale food mixed with the lingering scent of alcohol made his stomach turn again. Naruto rubbed his temples, trying to ease the pounding in his head. Each movement felt like too much effort, his limbs heavy and uncooperative. He stumbled slightly as he made his way to the bathroom, the room tilting around him. He managed to turn on the shower, the sound of running water somewhat soothing. Stepping under the hot spray, he let the warmth wash over him, hoping it would wash away the remnants of last night's mistakes along with the splitting headache. As the water cascaded down, he closed his eyes, willing his body to recover and regretting not heeding Tenten's warning about the sake. Stepping out of the steamy shower, Naruto felt the lingering ache of last night's party ease away. He quickly dried off, tossing the towel aside with a careless flick. The kitchen was his next stop. The morning light spilled across the countertop, casting a warm glow over everything. As he scrambled some eggs, his movements were lazy but efficient, a stark contrast to his usually energetic self. Each stir of the pan was methodical, mirroring his attempts to organize his thoughts and shake off the fog of the hangover. The sizzle of eggs hitting the hot pan brought a satisfied smile to his face. Breakfast, he decided, was a good start to sobering up and facing the day with whatever it decided to throw at him. His eyes sparkled with excitement as he mentally reviewed the glowing system window in front of him. Name: Uzumaki Naruto. Status: Chakra imbalance, difficulty in controlling chakra, minus 70% performance in executing simple jutsus. Title: Academy student. Level: 6. Class: Shinobi of the Uzumaki clan. Race. Human. HP. 447 base 352 plus 20 from jacket plus 50 from pants plus 25 from gambeson. AC. 27 base 22 plus 5 from gloves. CP. 14K. Racial traits. Chakra chains, locked. Mind's eye. Healer's body, locked. Class features. Scrolls arts. Fuinjutsu. Feats. Observer, weapon master. Stats. STR. 17, base 12 plus 2 from jacket plus 2 from pants. Dex. 23, base 14 plus 3 from jacket plus 3 from pants plus 3 from gambeson. Con. 12, base 10 plus 2 from gambeson. Int. 13. Wis. 12. Cha. 9. VIT. 19, base 11 plus 3 from jacket plus 2 from pants plus 3 from gambeson. Luck. Stat points remaining. 8. Allies. Equipment. Weapons. Black fingerless gloves with metal back plate. Armor. Bright orange sleeveless jacket, magic items. Dark blue gambeson. Gear. Bright orange light armored pants. Express. 15400. Description. Uzumaki Naruto is the dead last of the Konoha Academy, having failed the graduation twice before and clearly not prepared to graduate. While most of his past is a mystery, Uzumaki Naruto has found his clan. All of this, Naruto thought to himself, and I didn't even have to sit through those boring academy lectures. His chakra control skill had been a mixed bag. The skill made his chakra imbalance more manageable and even given him the Skill Academy clone jutsu, but also boosted his chakra capacity from 10k to 14k points. You win some, you lose some. The relentless string of E-rank missions had proved surprisingly beneficial. They weren't just menial chores, they were experience goldmines. Leveled up from 3 to 6, not too shabby, He scrolled through his skill list, a proud smile plastering his face as he noted each high-grade skill. Skill tab. Ninjutsu. Substitution Jutsu. Level 7. Transformation Jutsu. Level 8. Academy Clone Jutsu. Level 2. Fire Style. Fireball Jutsu. Level 2. Taijutsu. Kanai Bukijutsu. Level 10. Shuriken Bukijutsu. Level 10. Uzumaki Clan Taijutsu. Swirling Kata. Level 10. Scroll Arts. Level 10. Senju Clan Taijutsu. Flash Fist. Level 10. Genjutsu. None. Senjutsu. None. Kenjutsu. None. Fuinjutsu. Class features. Fuinjutsu. Level 10. Click to check Fuinjutsu scroll library. Description. This tab displays the current skills and abilities mastered by the player. Each category lists the skills along with their respective levels, indicating the player's proficiency and expertise in each domain. Users can explore detailed descriptions and potential upgrades by clicking on individual skills. The Weapon Master feat had turbocharged most of his physical skills to level 10. According to Tenten's evaluation, my shuriken skills are at a high Chunin level. So, it's safe to say level 10 is now going to be the benchmark for high Chunin level. He slapped the table playfully. I wonder what skills are going to be affected by the Observer feat. So glad I skipped that academy for some actual experience. He tapped his foot impatiently as he addressed the system. Come on, give me the graduation quest. Alert. World Quest. Quest title. You can do it. Pass the graduation exam. Objective. Successfully complete all parts of the Ninja Academy's graduation exam. Rewards. 1000 experience points. Award of Konoha Forehead Protector. Skill Stone Rune. Penalty for failure. 500 experience points. Action required. Acceptance or declination of quest, of What If Naruto Got a System. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author link in description. After 8 years of spending his days among the weak and the sycophantic, and his knights relentlessly pushing his limits, Sasuke Uchiha's lifelong ambition was finally beginning to take shape. Being the strongest among his peers should have been a point of pride, but it wasn't. That honor belonged to Naruto Uzumaki. Just a year ago, Naruto had seemed insignificant. Yet, a month ago, Sasuke had begun to respect him, especially after their fight, which pushed him to awaken his Sharingan, a step closer to matching that man. Naruto had left a deeper impression, one that uncomfortably reminded Sasuke of Itachi Uchiha. Naruto's eyes seemed to read the world like an open book, his power immense yet effortlessly controlled, and his skill with Bukijutsu strikingly familiar. It hit too close to home. Each morning, as Sasuke awoke, the pain from the wounds Naruto had inflicted felt like a taunt, reminding him that Naruto might just be his generation's Itachi. A fire kindled within him at the thought, fueling a single, consuming desire. He needed to defeat him. Defeating this generation's Itachi would prove he was moving closer to avenging his clan. Sasuke sat at his desk, his eyes fixed on the classroom door with an intensity that betrayed his usual disinterest. Today was different. It was the graduation exam, and even Naruto Uzumaki couldn't afford to miss it. Sasuke's jaw clenched at the thought that maybe, just like Itachi, the Anbu had already scooped Naruto up for his talents. That would be just his luck. The classroom buzzed with the nervous and excited chatter of his classmates, their voices a dull, irritating background noise to Sasuke's focused anticipation. He barely registered their existence. They were irrelevant to his goals. Suddenly, the classroom door banged open with dramatic flair. And the king is back, Naruto announced, jumping into the room with an air of expectation. The room fell into an unusual silence. Naruto frowned, muttering something under his breath as he scanned the room, his eyes briefly meeting Sasuke's before shifting away. Sasuke's attention sharpened as he saw the blonde girl who had once challenged him rise from her seat and drag Naruto out of the room. As Ino dragged Naruto out, rumors exploded like a detonated seal. I bet Ino-chan is going to give Naruto a good talking to. No way, countered another, her voice dreamy and filled with admiration for Ino. She's probably going to give her boyfriend a pep talk before the exam. She hugged her notebook to her chest, imagining a romantic scene between the two. Boyfriend, Ino and Naruto. I think you need to brush up on your information gathering skills, the second girl elaborated, nodding knowingly. A few weeks back, Naruto was badly beaten by Sasuke. Afterwards, Ino-sama rejected Naruto but then sought him out. I am 100% sure that Ino found Naruto and helped him by going on a few dates. To give Naruto some confidence, she even went and beat up Sasuke for hurting her boyfriend. Nearby, Sakura made a face of disgust. Gross. That Ino pig and Naruto baka dating. Hiba couldn't help but scoff at the ridiculousness of it all. Yeah, like that's ever going to happen. The day that idiot finds a girl he likes is the day pigs begin to talk. Well, you are talking. What are you insinuating? Choji, while munching on a bag of chips, said, Hiba, they're saying that you're a pig. Hiba turned to his loyal companion for support. No, they aren't. Right, Akamaru. Arf. Anger and opportunity flared within Sasuke. Just as Sasuke reached for the door handle, another hand landed on it. He turned sharply, his eyes narrowing as he recognized Hinata Hyuga, the clan heiress. Another weakling, he thought dismissively. However, before he could dismiss her completely, Hinata's demeanor shifted. Her eyes assumed the intense, veined appearance of the Byakugan. Move, she commanded quietly, yet with an authority that caught Sasuke off guard. In response, Sasuke's own eyes transformed, the red and black tomo of the Sharingan spinning into view. You first. Ino tugged Naruto out of the classroom, leading him down the hall until they reached a secluded spot under the bleachers. They stood in awkward silence, neither quite sure how to start the conversation. Scratching the back of his head, Naruto broke the silence. Ino, the exam's about to start, and I really don't want to fail this time, Datbeo. Can we talk about this later? As Naruto turned to leave, Ino reached out and grabbed his arm, stopping him. Why couldn't I find you in the last month? She blurted out, her voice a mix of frustration and curiosity. I was training at home, Naruto replied, his tone slightly defensive. Ino's voice rose in exasperation. Practically no one knows where you live. So what? Ino took a deep breath, hesitating as if gathering her thoughts. I wanted to talk to you about last time. When I rejected your date proposal. Naruto coughed, surprised. No, really. Yeah, your words about me being shallow. They stuck with me. Made me question why I liked Sasuke in the first place, Ino admitted, her voice softening. Okay. I've moved on from that. That prick. Good, Naruto replied, still trying to follow the conversation. Ino's eyes met Naruto's, a sincere look in them. And I wanted to say thank you for that. Taken aback, Naruto blinked a few times, unsure of how to respond. Acting on impulse, he gave Ino a quick hug. Ino immediately slapped him. What was that for? For hugging me. But I thought you wanted a hug, Naruto said, genuinely confused. Why would I need a hug? I don't know, you're the one telling me your lame love story. It's not lame. It is. Okay, fine, it was lame, Ino conceded with a sigh. Naruto looked at her, still not understanding. Okay, but why drag me out of class for all this? Ino shifted her weight. I was trying to establish an atmosphere. For what? I needed to ask you something important, Ino said, her voice more serious now. You needed all this atmosphere just to ask me something. Yes. Okay. So what is it? How can I break Sasuke Uchiha's spell of love over Sakura? Naruto stared at Ino for a moment, then said, yeah, I'm going back to class. No, I'm serious. Okay. I don't know. Ino groaned in frustration. I thought you'd have answers. Why would I have answers? You broke me out of the spell. Ino, look, I didn't do anything. You did it all on your own. Why don't you just let Sakura figure it out herself? But I want my best friend back. Then try being friends with Sakura again. But she won't talk to me, Ino lamented. Why not? I don't know. Sasuke, Ino replied, her gaze dropping to the floor. But aren't you over him? Yeah, and Sakura isn't. So, what's stopping your friendship? Sasuke, Ino said, almost as if it explained everything. Did he say something to you? No. Then what does Sasuke have to do with anything? Sakura is obsessed with Sasuke. And you're not, so I'm sure Sakura would be happier to have less competition. Ino pursed her lips, considering his words. Then why isn't she talking to me? Ino, I'm not a mind reader. If you want answers, go talk to Sakura herself. But, Ino, enough with these doubts. If you want Sakura to talk to you, go talk to her. And if she doesn't talk back, just ignore her. But she's my friend. Some people are too stubborn to listen. Look, I'm sure Sasuke and Sakura are going to be on the same team, and she'll see that Sasuke isn't interested in her. Then she'll understand where you're coming from and be your friend again. Ino stood there for a moment digesting Naruto's advice. Slowly she realized Naruto might be right. Her face lit up with a smile. You really are a good speaker, Naruto, she said, her voice tinged with newfound respect. Thanks. The familiar scent wafted through the air, abruptly halting Ino in her tracks. It was a perfume, one she had gifted to Takai. As the fragrance enveloped her, her brain raced to connect the dots, and her eyes widened in shock. The realization struck her with the force of a thunderclap. Naruto was Takai. Takai, she stuttered, her voice trembling and catching in her throat, rooting Naruto to the spot. I am. Naruto began, his voice trailing off as if to weave a denial, but the sight of Ino's tears stopped him short. A softer, more vulnerable tone took over as he confessed, I am Takai, trying to soothe her. You got taller. It was an offbeat remark, so unexpected that Naruto responded with a baffled, that made you burst into tears. Ino's gaze remained locked on him, seeing Naruto anew. Here was the village's notorious prankster, yet also the enigmatic figure who had shifted her perspective on so many things. He was the mystery she had unwittingly been unraveling, the one who made her question her long-held crush on Sasuke and opened her eyes to a world beyond her tunnel vision. He had even saved her from the potential humiliation of confronting Sasuke. And those deep blue eyes of his, there was so much more to them than she had ever noticed. A curiosity ignited within her, an eagerness to discover the real Naruto Uzumaki, not the prankster or the class clown, but the observant, mysterious man he truly was. You look good in those clothes, Ino remarked, managing to pull a bright smile from Naruto. That smile sent her heart racing, a fluttering in her chest she couldn't quite control. Naruto. Yes, he replied, his body stiffening slightly as Ino traced circles on his chest, a daring move that belied her rising shyness. I'll say yes this time, she managed to blurt out, her cheeks flaming with a blush. Without waiting for his response, she turned and dashed away, her heart pounding furiously. As she ran, a wry thought crossed her mind. You bastard, you didn't break Sasuke's spell. You just put me under yours. Meanwhile, Naruto was utterly bewildered. Yes to what? He murmured to himself before scratching his head in confusion. I don't think I'll ever understand women. Mizuki was not a content man. He derived no true satisfaction from slaving away for the children in the academy, an ungrateful bunch he hoped would get brutally slaughtered on their very first missions. Some, like the Uchiha boy, showed tremendous promise, rare talents capable of becoming deadly shinobi. These he cultivated and promoted. The rest, however, were mere stepping stones, amalgamations of welcome mats and dusty staircases upon which their more talented colleagues would eventually step and climb in their ascent to greatness. He had been relieved when Naruto, the demon child, ceased attending classes. Mizuki preferred it that way, hoping to keep the boy out of sight and out of mind. The day of graduation arrived, and with it, Naruto stepped into the class, challenging Mizuki's wishful thinking. From the shadows, Mizuki watched with a sly smile playing on his lips, pondering his cunning plan. It was all falling into place perfectly. The final piece involved getting the demon brat to sneak into the Hokage tower to steal the forbidden scroll of seals, even if the Hokage himself might be present. Given Naruto's connections with the Hokage, Mizuki felt a surge of confidence that his plan was foolproof. All I need to do is to fail the brat, Mizuki thought, a gleam in his eye. The boy had been missing the majority of his classes, making Mizuki's task seemingly effortless. The graduation exam was divided into two parts, academic and practical. Mizuki hardly concerned himself with the academic portion, a 3-hour-long test. He didn't bother altering it. Naruto had missed too many classes to hope for a good performance. Then came the practical portion, the real test of his manipulation. This part was divided into 3 stages: Genjutsu, Taijutsu, and Ninjutsu. First, the students had to break out of a Genjutsu ensnarement. Mizuki's eyes narrowed as Naruto entered the exam room. Ready to put his plan into action, Mizuki quickly attempted to ensnare Naruto in a Genjutsu, aiming a needle of chakra directly at the boy's nerves to create a false reality. He was certain Iruka wouldn't object, as it was standard procedure. However, unlike with other students, Mizuki didn't hold back with Naruto. Standing to the side, Iruka watched closely, particularly focusing on Naruto's eyes. To be successfully caught in a Genjutsu, one's pupils would noticeably dilate. What do I have to do? Iruka glanced at Mizuki, who was growing increasingly frustrated with each failed attempt to ensnare the boy. Naruto seemed completely unaffected. Mizuki, Iruka finally interjected, his tone calm. You try it, Mizuki snapped back. Iruka took his turn, but still, nothing happened. Naruto's eyes remained clear, unclouded by any Genjutsu effects. Can you two stop doing that? It's annoying. What? Naruto, what do you think we are doing? You're throwing those weird chakra needles at me. I just destroy it the moment it enters my body, Naruto replied nonchalantly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Mizuki's and Iruka's eyes widened in shock. Naruto was describing dismantling the Genjutsu before it could even take hold, a feat of chakra control beyond even some Shunin. That's impossible, Mizuki muttered under his breath. His plan was unraveling before his eyes, and his frustration mounted. Iruka, however, simply smiled and gave Naruto full marks. Good, Naruto, you passed the Genjutsu portion. Now, The taijutsu, Mizuki. Mizuki stood up, masking his frustration with a forced smile. As he prepared for the next stage, he reassured himself that he could still salvage the situation. He planned to push Naruto just enough during the taijutsu to ensure his failure, making it appear as a legitimate defeat. Mizuki walked to the front of the room. This part was simple. The genin must last a minute against a chunin without being decisively beaten. He glanced at Naruto, who seemed more composed than usual. As their eyes met, Mizuki had the unsettling feeling that Naruto could see right through him, as if he were an open book. Mizuki steeled himself, waiting for Iruka's command to start. He planned to make quick work of Naruto, to put him in his place and regain some control after the earlier setbacks. Hajime. The moment the signal was given, Mizuki lunged forward, but before he could even register his own movement, a sudden, sharp pain exploded on his chin. The world spun wildly around him, colors and shapes blurring into an indistinct whirl. He could barely comprehend what had happened. One moment he was on the attack, the next he was sprawled on the floor, the cold, hard surface shocking his system. What happened? The thought barely formed in his dazed mind before darkness crept in, swallowing his consciousness. Name: Tsuji Mizuki. Status: infected by prototype cursed seal. Title: Academy Assistant Teacher. Level: 13. Class: Civilian Shinobi. Race: Human. HP: 2350-2350. AAC: 30. CP: 2K 2K. Lineage traits: none. Class features: Mask of a Shinobi. Feats: Deceiver. Stats: STR: 20. Dex: 25. Con: 15. Int: 13. Wis: 12. Cha: 9. VIT: 26. Luck: 3. Allies. Equipment: redacted. Description: a talentless orphan born during the Second Shinobi War, never amounted to anything, never praised until he met redacted, and gained everything he ever wanted. Naruto glanced at the window, utterly unimpressed by Mizuki's performance, or lack thereof. How? Looking up, he caught sight of Iruka, whose jaw had dropped in disbelief. It wasn't every day that a student knocked out an instructor with such ease. Oh, it's simple, Naruto began, eager to explain his rapid takedown. I just kicked him very fast with my flash fist. Or feet, I guess, and used sheer force jutsu. What? So, Naruto was about to repeat his explanation, thinking maybe Iruka hadn't caught it the first time, but Iruka held up a hand to stop him. No need to explain it, Naruto, but you just knocked out Mizuki. Well, he shouldn't have been on the sabotage list. Aloud, Naruto said, I have an idea. Iruka motioned for him to continue. I use the transformation jutsu to pretend I am Mizuki, and you give me extra points. Iruka looked uncertain. And what about that? He asked, pointing to Mizuki's unconscious form on the ground. I channel my chakra onto his body and use the transformation jutsu so that he appears to be a training dummy. I'll move him to the infirmary, and then I come back as Mizuki. It will take a minute, tops. And why the extra points? I missed a lot of classes, Naruto explained with a sheepish grin. I can just make them up here, or you can just do the exam alone. Iruka considered this for a moment, then finally nodded. Fine, but let's finish your exam first. Show me the 3 basic jutsu. Quest: pass the graduation exam. Status: successfully completed. Rewards granted: 1000 experience points. Konoha Forehead Protector. Skill Stone Rune. Bonus title: Genin. Naruto strode out of the exam room, the weight of his new forehead protector feeling both heavy and exhilarating on his forehead. Hinata and Ino beamed at him, proud and happy that he had passed. The rest of the class, however, looked puzzled as they watched him lug what appeared to be a training dummy out of the room. Tem, can you move out of the way? Naruto called out, his gaze locking onto Sasuke, who was obstructively standing between him and the door. Fight me. No, I'm busy, Naruto retorted, but Sasuke remained unmoved. Fine, meet on the rooftop after the exam is done. Now, move Tem, I have to get him to the infirmary. Sasuke finally stepped aside, though his confusion about why Naruto needed to move a dummy to the infirmary was evident in his furrowed brow. A few minutes later, Mizuki re-entered the classroom, further confusing everyone. Mizuki quietly sat beside Iruka. So, what do I do? You just need to assist me with the remaining students. So, you have to cast genjutsu. Iruka began, but then corrected himself. No, wait, I'll cast the genjutsu. No, just teach me how to cast genjutsu. Iruka hesitated, about to argue that Naruto couldn't possibly learn genjutsu on his first try, but then he remembered how quickly Naruto had mastered the fireball jutsu. Okay, the mechanism is simple, you need visualization and a medium. Naruto half listened, his attention split as he glanced at the system window, hoping it would grant him a genjutsu skill. His fingers drummed impatiently on the desk. System quest alert. Quest. Learn genjutsu ensnarement. Objective. Chakra control level 10. Basic knowledge on the mechanism of genjutsu. Int. 15. Wis. 15. Reward. Skill genjutsu ensnarement. Failure. None. Action required. Confirm acceptance or declination of class skill. Naruto's lips curved into a satisfied smile as he mentally tallied up the objectives. Stats. Int. 13 right pointing arrow 15. Wis. 12 right pointing arrow 15. Naruto quickly activated spirit possession to grasp the nuances of Iruka's rapid-fire lecture on genjutsu. The concept of genjutsu was fascinating. It worked by the user throwing their chakra into the nervous system of their opponent, specifically aiming for the brain's sensory processing centers. This chakra then acted like a bioelectrical signal that could interfere with or alter the normal sensory data being processed, effectively creating illusions or false sensations. Quest. Learn genjutsu ensnarement. Status. Successfully completed. Rewards granted. Skill genjutsu ensnarement. Skill. Genjutsu ensnarement. Level 1 active. Description. AC rank jutsu that enables the user to cast basic illusions, affecting the perceptions of those ensnared within them. Passive enhancements. Yin affinity. Involves the creation of form from nothingness, enhancing the potency and believability of illusions. Active enhancements. Casting speed. Increases the casting speed of genjutsu by 5%, allowing for quicker deployment and response in combat situations. As Naruto felt the sensation of the yin affinity, he experienced an unusual stir within his mind, a sensation of drifting into a dream. It was as though he had stepped through a veil into a world where the line between reality and imagination blurred. Naruto, look, let me just do the genjutsu. Iruka started to speak when suddenly the room bizarrely transformed. The walls seemed to melt away, replaced by an endless cascade of dancing ramen bowls. Iruka couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all, his chakra flaring as he quickly dispelled the illusion. Okay, fine. Let me call in the next student. The moment Sakura entered, her eyes dilated, and a sudden nosebleed overtook her as she collapsed onto the floor with a blissful smile plastered across her face. Iruka's eyebrow twitched in bewilderment, as his sweat dropped. Naruto, what was the genjutsu you used? Iruka asked, trying to keep his voice level. A crowd of emo teens half-naked in towels. Iruka frowned, the pieces clicking together all too clearly. Sasuke. Yep. Iruka shook his head, pinching the bridge of his nose as he marked Sakura's grade as failed. Iruka-sensei, can I ask you something? Sure. Who do you think are going to be my teammates? I don't know, Naruto. Didn't you give recommendation letters to the Hokage about the students? I am going to do that tomorrow. Okay then, can I request that you recommend me and Hinata to be in the same team? Sure. You are the best, sensei. Naruto beamed, his gratitude evident as he gave Iruka a thumbs up before turning back to help Sakura regain her bearings. As the exam concluded, Naruto stepped out of the academy, his face lit up with a broad smile. That smile faltered slightly as he observed his classmates being embraced by their families. Mothers cried tears of joy, fathers swelled with pride. Naruto's heart sank a little as he realized, yet again, that he had no one waiting for him. Just as he was about to get lost in his familiar feelings of loneliness, a voice cut through his reverie. I thought your forehead protector would be orange. Naruto's spirits lifted instantly at the sight of Tenten. They didn't have any in orange. Congratulations, Tenten said warmly, and in a spontaneous burst of emotion, Naruto reached out and hugged her. What? Is Naruto going to become a crybaby? Tenten teased, her voice light, but as she felt Naruto tighten his grip, she wrapped her arms around him in a comforting embrace. You deserve this, don't let anyone tell you otherwise, she whispered into his ear. Yeah. In that moment Naruto was happy, truly happy. Suddenly, the chime of a system notification snapped him back to reality. Alert! World quest generated. Due to the negative reputation between 2G Mizuki and player Naruto, a new quest has arisen from Mizuki's hatred. Alert! World quest. Quest title: A Traitor's Puppet. Objective: Meet with Mizuki in the infirmary to gain a chain quest. Rewards: a scenario that will enable Naruto Uzumaki to learn the truth about why he is hated. Failure. Action required: acceptance or declination of quest. Naruto was wary of Mizuki. He trusted him about as far as he could throw him. Reflecting on that now, Naruto realized that might not be the best way to measure trust. With enough effort and his sheer force jutsu, he could probably hurl Mizuki quite a distance. As Naruto walked into the infirmary to meet him, Mizuki greeted Naruto with a broad smile, congratulating him on his recent exam performance. The bastard was putting on a good show, but that smile of his, it didn't quite reach his eyes. It felt off, and Naruto knew better than to take it at face value. Mizuki's acting might fool someone else, but not Naruto, and definitely not the system. Alert! Reputation change with 2G Mizuki. Previous status: despised. New status: Midas Hand. Midas Hand details. Description: granted to non-players with whom the player has a negative reputation. Effect: Mizuki will seek to undermine Naruto, turning seemingly beneficial actions into harmful outcomes. Warning: engagements with Mizuki may appear promising but are likely to lead to adverse results. Proceed with caution. Mizuki had just pitched an extra credit exam that suspiciously involved stealing the Forbidden Scroll of Seals. As Naruto stood there listening, his mind raced through his options. On one hand, he could just march right up to the Hokage's office and spill the beans about Mizuki's plan. That would surely land Mizuki in jail. On the other hand, alert! World quest. Quest title: Knowledge is Power. Objectives: infiltrate the Hokage's library. Acquire the Forbidden Scroll of Seals. Escape undetected with the Forbidden Scroll of Seals. Deliver the Forbidden Scroll of Seals to the designated secret location. Bonus objective. Bonus objective. Rewards: 2,000 experience points per completed objective. Additional 1,000 experience points for completing any bonus objectives. A scenario that will enable Naruto Uzumaki to learn the truth about why he is hated. Penalty for failure: capture and imprisonment. Decrease in reputation within Konoha. The promise of uncovering the hidden truth was incredibly tempting. If Naruto turned down this chance, would another opportunity ever come up? What was this secret the system was dangling in front of him? Was it tied to why the Hokage himself delivered a monthly stipend to Naruto? Why was he always looked at with those eyes full of disdain? Was this connected to the Uzumaki clan or was it something entirely different? But let's be honest. Naruto knew he could be a bit of a fool sometimes. Yet, even a fool could see the reality of a situation when it was staring him in the face. This mission was dangerous. If he was really going to steal the Forbidden Scroll, he had to bring his A game. Naruto's gaze inadvertently drifting to the inventory. He clenched the rune tightly in his hand, feeling its cool, smooth black surface against his skin. Please, something powerful, please, he muttered under his breath, squeezing his eyes shut. It felt more like he was making a birthday wish than activating a magical item. Item: Skill Rune Stone. Status: Used. Acquired skill: Earth Style. Diamond Skin. Skill. Earth style. Diamond skin. Level. 1 active. Chakra points, CP, required. 100 per inch. Description. AB rank jutsu that coats the user's body in earth chakra, manipulating it into a diamond lattice to create a diamond coating for 1 minute. Passive enhancements. Earth affinity. Allows manipulation of the ground for defense and attack, solid and reliable. Active effects. Durability. Applies the durability of diamond to the coated area. Warning. Use on mobile parts causes stiffness, preventing movement. To remove the immobilization debuff, increase the skill level. As Naruto reached the rooftop, Sasuke was already there, casually sitting on the handrail as if he owned the place. What took you so long? Naruto rolled his eyes at Sasuke's impatience. Whatever, let's just get this over with, he muttered, more eager to test out his new skill than he let on. Indeed. He didn't waste another moment, appearing right in front of Naruto in a blur. His feint was smooth and deceptive, his body twisting slightly. Sasuke's legs swept around in a swift, circular motion, a round kick aimed directly at Naruto's shoulder traps. Naruto reacted, channeling earth chakra to his shoulder. As he concentrated, the chakra began to crystallize, morphing into an intricate diamond lattice shape. The fine dust particles in the air were drawn to the charged chakra lattice, clinging to it layer by layer until a solid shell of diamond emerged, encasing Naruto's shoulders just in time to intercept Sasuke's kick. Sasuke's kick landed hard against the diamond-hard barrier. Naruto couldn't help but wince inwardly for him as he saw Sasuke's expression contort, a mix of agony and surprise, as he tried desperately to hold back a scream. It was fair, really. Sasuke had just kicked diamond with his shin. Internally, Naruto was buzzing with excitement. The skill worked even better than he'd hoped, and the look on Sasuke's face was an added bonus. Sasuke jumped back, and Naruto instantly recognized his stance. He was gearing up for the fire style, fireball jutsu. His Sharingan was already active. Naruto wasn't about to just stand there. He responded with his own fire style, fireball jutsu. As their fireballs collided, they exploded with a deafening roar, the force of the blast sending a rush of hot air swirling around them. The heat prickled against Naruto's skin, and the light from the flames briefly lit up the entire rooftop like a sudden burst of daylight. Out of the corner of his eye, Naruto saw Sasuke weaving signs for another jutsu. A giant cloud of smoke erupted and began to swirl around them, obscuring Naruto's vision. He could tell Sasuke was moving within it, probably circling around for a better angle. New jutsu, Tem. Naruto wasn't really worried. Closing his eyes, he tapped into the mind's eye to pinpoint Sasuke's location. The swirling smoke might have confused anyone else, but Naruto wasn't just anyone. He played along, pretending the smoke was disorienting him, periodically turning his head as if searching blindly. When he sensed Sasuke had paused, likely thinking he had confused him, Naruto decided it was time to surprise him. As he turned his back, Sasuke struck, launching two kunai wired with ninja wire at him. Naruto spun around just in time to catch them, his fingers brushing against the cold metal. He felt a pulse of fire chakra building in Sasuke's lungs, ready to turn this setup into a fiery trap. Dumbass. Before Sasuke could unleash whatever he planned, Naruto quickly cast a genjutsu ensnarement. Sasuke felt the smoke around him morph unsettlingly into an orange goo, which then grotesquely formed into a giant head of Naruto. The exaggerated features of Naruto's face loomed over him, the familiar grin stretched grotesquely wide. Datbeo. The giant head screamed, its voice echoing around him, and Sasuke felt a chill of mortification. He frantically tried to break the genjutsu, pouring his chakra into dispelling the illusion, but to no avail. Why isn't it breaking? Sasuke thought desperately, his fingers forming seals rapidly. His frustration mounted with each failed attempt. Because I am reapplying the genjutsu again and again, faster than you can break it. You should really work on your chakra control, Tem. The floating Naruto had taunted him with a smugness that made Sasuke grit his teeth. Sasuke clicked his tongue in annoyance. Tem. The head mimicked him mockingly. You know, if I hadn't ensnared you in this genjutsu, you would have killed us both. Naruto's voice came from the giant head, slightly more serious this time. Sasuke replied, confusion knitting his brows. Dust, smoke and fire cause explosions, HN. Don't. Me. So, you have two choices. Either give up, and I'll give you this. The giant Naruto head turned, and from a swirl of white smoke, a figure emerged. Sasuke's eyes widened as a beautiful model walked out. Her body was human, perfect in form, but absurdly, her head was a bowl of ramen. Isn't she beautiful? You have a problem, Sasuke retorted dryly, his voice flat, the situation straining even his usually stoic demeanor. So, are you going to accept it, or not? The floating head gave Sasuke a look and then opened its mouth. Caw caw bitch. A bizarre rubber chicken noise echoed through the air, and just as Sasuke tried to make sense of the sound, the scene took an even stranger turn. From the gaping mouth of the floating Naruto head, a muscular humanoid rubber chicken emerged. It strutted confidently towards Sasuke with a comically serious expression on its rubbery face. Before Sasuke could even raise his guard, the rubber chicken swung a powerful punch. It connected squarely with Sasuke's face, knocking him out cold in an instant. As darkness closed in around him, the last thing Sasuke saw was the absurd figure of the rubber chicken flexing its muscles triumphantly, a ridiculous sight that would have been hilarious under any other circumstances. Should have listened, Should have taken the ramen, babe, Naruto chided, shaking his head at the unconscious Sasuke, with the rubber chicken casually slung over his shoulder. Anyways, Naruto mused aloud, I tested the diamond skin. It's awesome, but the hampered mobility is quite the drawback. He glanced down at the rubber chicken. I wonder. Pausing for a moment, he channeled chakra into the rubber chicken, then performed the earth-style diamond skin jutsu. To his delight and surprise, the rubber chicken shimmered, turning into a gleaming diamond statue. Haha, I have a diamond cock. Just then, he heard a creak. Turning around, Naruto saw the school janitor standing in the doorway, his eyes flicking from the knocked-out Sasuke back to Naruto, and then remembered Naruto's comment about his cock. Congratulations for coming out, the janitor said dryly, tipping his hat with a barely concealed smirk before slowly closing the door behind him. Spirit possession has been activated. A shadow flitted from rooftop to rooftop, swallowed by the darkness of a moonless night. Naruto paused only when he reached the looming structure of the Hokage Tower. It was a stout, round building, painted in vivid red and flanked by two smaller replicas. Yet, it was actually shorter than the blue-topped broadcast station next to it, which stood tall like a defiant finger against the skyline. Catching his breath, Naruto counted silently, waiting for the right moment. Then, with a burst of chakra using Flash Fist, he sprinted and leapt, grabbing onto a gutter along the wall of the broadcast station. His fingers found purchase in the smallest crevices between the bricks, pulling him up like a phantom cat in the night. Reaching the peculiar blue roof, shaped like a witch's hat and topped with an odd sphere, Naruto moved with deliberate care. He secured a rope to one of the beams jutting out from the woodwork and then eyed his target, the flat roof of a secondary tower. For the most secure part of Konoha, the security here is pathetic. With a deep breath, he steeled himself for what came next. This was a one-shot deal. A miss could land him in the hospital, or worse. Naruto circled the roof, gauging his angle and trajectory, then started his run. The air hissed past as he sprinted along the station's wall at an oblique angle and then leapt into the void. The rope snapped taut, whizzing as gravity claimed its due. The pendulum motion kicked in, the beam creaking ominously above him as he swung toward his goal. At the apex of his swing, feeling a brief moment of weightlessness, he cut the harness. He plummeted like a stone, landing on the northern secondary tower with a grunt and a roll to absorb the impact. Naruto found himself sprawled among the ornamental bushes lining the tower's edge, catching his breath and checking his bearings. He should be right between the guards' rotations if his timing was correct. Now, unnoticed, he needed to move fast. The roof dusted beneath his hands as he stood, brushing off the debris. From here, scaling the main tower was easy. The first and second levels were heavily guarded and nearly impossible to climb, but the third level's defenses were mitigated by an array of pipes and cables. Naruto took another deep breath and moved on. The hardest part was behind Naruto, or so he thought. The real challenge was just beginning. Navigating the corridors was almost too easy. The pairs of Chunin and occasional Jonin patrolling the hallways didn't even come close to spotting him. He could do this part in his sleep, which made the thrill of the heist a little less thrilling. Digging into his pocket, Naruto pulled out one of his proudest inventions, a special scroll he designed for situations just like this. Holding the scroll in his right hand, he quickly unrolled it on the floor right in front of the door to his target, the heavily guarded vault. Fuin. Sensory mirror wall, he whispered, pressing his hands together in a ram seal and stepping onto the scroll. The air around him shimmered and shifted, cloaking him in a reflection of the empty corridor. This seal was the result of his personal project, where he had created a seal that released chakra in the same way as the transformation jutsu. The air was used as a medium to create a cloak of camouflage, making him practically invisible to anyone watching. Now invisible, he had exactly 4 minutes to work. The lock was no ordinary lock. Hidden behind a genjutsu-like barrier and laden with fuinjutsu, it was a real challenge. But that's what made it exciting. Let's open you up, he muttered, his fingers working quickly and precisely. 3 minutes and 40 seconds later, just as another oblivious patrol walked past, the vault clicked open. Time was running out. Naruto darted inside the vault, slinging a large, fat scroll onto his back. Every second counted now, and he couldn't afford to waste any. Outside, he formed a half-tiger seal with his left hand and whispered, "Katsu." The scroll he'd used as a decoy disintegrated into ash, just as the fuses on his makeshift fireworks burned down. The night sky above Konoha erupted in bursts of color, drawing every eye to the spectacle. With the guards distracted by the fireworks and the vault alarm, his escape was simple. He tossed a rope out of a second-floor window and slid down with ease. His body moved fluidly, adrenaline surging as he felt the rope burn slightly against his gloves. The cool night air brushed against his face as he made his descent, the chaos he'd left behind ensuring a clean getaway. As he hit the ground and tucked into a roll to absorb the impact, a grin spread across his face. The thrill, the rush of executing a perfect heist, it was exhilarating. Naruto adjusted the heavy scroll on his back and sprinted into the shadows, already planning his next move. Hiruzen Sarutobi was having a peaceful night when he was awakened by a burning sensation. The old ninja woke up immediately. Years of combat did that to a man, but he searched for a second to find the reason for his awakening. His heart grew cold when he realized it was the tattoo signaling a breach of the vault that was heating up. Just as he considered the implications of such a thing happening, fireworks illuminated the sky of Konoha. The old cage swore under his breath. Naruto made his way swiftly to the southern forest, a perfect location for anyone seeking to escape from Konoha. The jungle was dense, a sprawling green mass that led directly into the wilderness of the Fire Nation. The only barrier between Konoha and freedom was a simple guard post. He had already pieced together Mizuki's scheme, stealing the forbidden scroll of seals, kill Naruto, and then make his escape from the village. Naruto snorted at the thought. Loser forgot that I'm stronger than him. He shrugged off the danger, his focus fixed on a greater mystery. The big secret that it seemed everyone else knew but him gnawed at his curiosity. As long as he could uncover that, he didn't care much about Mizuki's plans. Alert. World Quest. Quest title. Knowledge is power. Objective. Acquire the forbidden scroll of seals from the Hokage's library. Specific tasks include: infiltrate the Hokage's library. Escape undeterred with the forbidden scroll of seals. Bring the forbidden scroll of seals to the secret location. Select and learn a skill from the forbidden scroll of seals skill catalog. Bonus objectives. Distract the Sandaime and escape undetected. Additional undisclosed bonus objective. Rewards. 2,000 experience points per main objective. 1,000 experience points for each bonus objective. 10,000 Ryo upon completion of all objectives. Increased reputation with Konoha. Penalty for failure. Capture and imprisonment. Reputation decrement within Konoha village parameters. Naruto's eyes lit up with anticipation as he unfurled the scroll of seals. The best way to describe it was a complex interlocking web of storage seals, each meticulously protected by barrier seals, shock seals, and explosive seals. He licked his lips with excitement at the sight of the barrier and shock seals. 2 new seals to work with. Library update. Naruto has interacted with new seals, expanding the Fuinjutsu Scroll Library. Fuinjutsu Scroll Library. Fuinjutsu seals recorded. Explosive seal. Description. A seal that contains chakra, which when released, manifests as an explosion. Storage seal. Description. Stores non-living objects by converting their matter into energy and vice versa upon release or storage. Records a blueprint of the object within the seal. Sensory mirror wall. Description. A seal that uses chakra to create a barrier using the air as a medium, functioning on principles similar to the transformation jutsu. This barrier mirrors sensory perceptions to create illusions or hide presences. Shock seal. Description. Contains chakra that, when released, takes the form of electricity. Note. This seal can only be used once. Barrier seal. Description. Forms a durable barrier using the air as a medium, capable of lasting a full day without sustaining damage. The barrier can absorb up to 40 mJ of energy before breaking. Note. Interact with more seals or level up to further expand the library and discover new Fuinjutsu capabilities. Naruto's gaze then shifted to a single storage seal that appeared unprotected, almost inviting. It seemed this particular seal was accessed so frequently that the Fuinjutsu scribe hadn't bothered to secure it. This was his chance. Naruto focused, channeling his chakra into the seal with precision. With a faint hiss and a puff of smoke, a scroll popped out, materializing in front of him. Item. Multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu. Description. A scroll that contains the hand signs and basic mechanisms of the forbidden multi-shadow clone jutsu. This scroll is given only to Jonin level ninjas because of its high chakra demand. System Quest Alert. Quest. Learn multi-shadow clone jutsu. Objective. Possess 5k or more CP. Reward. Basic Academy Taijutsu. Failure. None. Action required. Confirm acceptance or declination of class skill. Naruto blinked. That's it. Skill. Multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Level. 1 active. Chakra points, CP, required. 1/2 total CP. Description. A bubble of chakra made of yin, given life through yang. Passive enhancements. Yang affinity. Yang relates to breathing life into form. Clone capability. Each clone can fight, use jutsu, and learn independently. Active boost. Return. The clone's knowledge and remaining chakra returns to the user. Naruto swiftly formed the tiger seal, channeling chakra along the frame of his body and pushing it outward in a dramatic puff of smoke, mimicking the Academy's basic clone technique. However, this was different. A substantial chunk of his chakra filled the bubble, solidifying into a clone that was far more substantial than the typical Academy clone. Facing his clone, Naruto couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. He stuck out his tongue, and the clone exaggeratedly mimed being shocked, clasping its hands to its cheeks. They took turns inventing silly poses and facial expressions, each trying to outdo the other with more ridiculous gestures. At one point, Naruto pretended to pull an invisible rope, and the clone played along perfectly, pretending to be tugged forward, stumbling with theatrical clumsiness. Can you talk? Yes, the clone responded promptly, causing both of them to cheer in unison, yada. Can you use the system skills? Like Fireball. No, idiot, like spirit possession skills that directly connect to the system. Let me try, the clone said, its demeanor suddenly shifting, adopting a more serious and composed posture that Naruto recognized from his own use of spirit possession. Naruto watched, fascinated and slightly weirded out. Wow, do I do that when I use spirit possession? He asked, one eyebrow arched as he leaned forward to get a better look. Depending on the situation, I can appear both smarter and like you, the clone answered, causing Naruto to grumble, smart ass. Let's get some more powerful jutsus from the scroll. We have plenty of time before Mizuki comes. Now you're speaking my language, Naruto replied with a grin. All things considered, the seals on the Forbidden Scroll were hard and complex for a normal person. For an Uzumaki, the flaws in the scroll's seals stood out like sore thumbs, beckoning Naruto to exploit them. Naruto's hand glowed with chakra as he focused on the seals. Alright, let's see. Fuin Kai. Senryaku Taikai. The seal reacted immediately, the intricate patterns shimmering under the influence of Naruto's chakra. He could feel the layers of the seal unraveling, like threads being pulled from a tightly woven cloth. This is like picking a lock, only 1,000 times cooler. The seal's defenses were formidable, but Naruto's level over Fuinjutsu gave him the upper hand. With each passing second, the seal's resistance waned, until finally, with a flourish of his hand, Naruto uttered, Fuin Hokai. The seal broke, dissipating into a cloud of chakra particles that glowed briefly before vanishing. Yes, that's how you do it. He stepped back, admiring his handiwork. Naruto stood before the forbidden scroll of seals, now cracked open and revealing its contents. Naruto stumbled upon a dozen scrolls scattered across the ground. Eagerly, he picked one up, the kanji on it sparking his excitement. It read, Flying Thunder God Jutsu. With a grin spreading across his face, Naruto unfurled the scroll, only to find it completely blank. What? He quickly grabbed the next scroll labeled Acid Blood Jutsu. It too was blank. One after another, he went through the scrolls. Chakra Implosion Jutsu, Reaper Death Seal, all of them empty, void of any writing or diagrams. Every single jutsu scroll was blank except for one. Item. Shadow Weapon Jutsu, Kage Buki no Jutsu. Description. A scroll that contains the hand signs and basic mechanisms of the forbidden Shadow Weapon Jutsu. This scroll is given only to Jonin-level ninjas because of its high chakra demand and because it's a jutsu that Hiruzen Sarutobi created on his own. He only gives it to people he knows will protect the village. Skill. Shadow Weapon Jutsu, Kage Buki no Jutsu. Level. 1 active. Chakra points, CP, required. 100 per copy. Description. An A rank that creates physical copies of the user's weapons. Can be used to create an area of effect with replicated weapons. Passive enhancements. Area of effect accuracy. Increases accuracy of weapons in AoE by 5%. Active boost. Weapon durability. Increases the durability of weapon copies by 10%. Naruto leaned back against a tree, his mind whirling with possibilities. The forbidden scroll of sealing, filled with nothing but empty scrolls, hinted at many things. One possibility was that the scroll was a fake, but Naruto dismissed that thought quickly. He had sent a shadow clone back to Konoha to use the mind's eye technique to observe the chaos as the shinobi scrambled to find him. The presence of Genin, Chunin, Jonin, and even Anbu chakra signatures in the turmoil confirmed the scroll's authenticity. This left Naruto considering other options. Perhaps the Hokage had swapped out the real scroll with this decoy in case of theft. Or maybe someone outside the Hokage's knowledge had managed to replace the real scrolls with these blanks. However, Naruto leaned toward the former explanation. It made sense that the Hokage would have a failsafe for such a critical and dangerous item. A golden palace becomes hollow when its own guardians dig beneath its walls. He shook his head to clear the somber thoughts as he sensed Iruka rapidly approaching his location. Okay. Showtime. Naruto. Iruka's voice hit Naruto, tinged with a sharp edge of anger he hadn't heard from him before. Naruto looked up to see Iruka storming towards him, his hands firmly gripping Naruto's shoulders as his eyes bored into his with an intensity that made Naruto wince. Do you know what you've done? I just did the secret exam set by Mizuki-sensei, Naruto lied, trying to sound confident, but his voice betrayed a slight quiver. What? Out of nowhere, a barrage of shurikens whistled through the air towards them. Reacting on pure instinct, Naruto flicked his wrist, sending a kunai spinning into the path of the incoming projectiles. With precise timing, the kunai tagged each shuriken, redirecting them away from both him and Iruka. The shurikens clattered harmlessly to the ground around them, and Naruto could feel Iruka's gaze on him, heavy with surprise and a flicker of admiration. When did he learn to do that? Well, Well, I didn't expect that. I'm impressed you found this place. Iruka, Mizuki's voice came from the shadows, dripping with feigned surprise and underlying menace. I see how it is. Naruto, give me that scroll, Mizuki demanded sharply, his eyes greedily fixed on the forbidden scroll clutched in Naruto's hands. Naruto, never give him that scroll. It's a dangerous object that contains forbidden ninjutsu. Mizuki used you to get it for himself, Iruka's voice cracked with urgency. Naruto, Iruka is only afraid of you having that scroll. Huh, is the scenario finally happening, but I haven't even finished the mission. Don't let him fool you. Naruto, Mizuki pressed on, his voice persuasive and dangerous. I will tell you the truth. Don't you dare, it's forbidden. 13 years ago, a rule was set, a rule that everyone but Naruto knew. As Mizuki spoke, Naruto's heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. Everyone but me. What are you talking about? Stop it, Mizuki. This rule is to keep you from knowing the truth about what you are. Do you want to know? Mizuki taunted. What am I? You are the Kyuubi no Kitsune that nearly destroyed the village 13 years ago. You killed the beloved Yondaime Hokage. Mizuki's words were like venom. You even killed Iruka's parents. The world seemed to stop spinning. The revelation hit Naruto like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of him. His legs felt weak, and he staggered slightly, his hands trembling as the full weight of Mizuki's words settled upon his shoulders. It all clicked in an instant. The sabotaged exams, the relentless glares from villagers, and the whispers behind his back. Even the seemingly benign monthly stipend from the Hokage. Naruto's entire life in Konoha, wrapped in a shroud of disdain he never fully understood until now. Demon Child. That nickname wasn't just a cruel joke, it was his reality. He wasn't hated for being an Uzumaki, he was despised for being the Kyuubi. How dare you? Iruka's voice cut through the heavy silence, hissing with a venom Naruto had never heard before. Mizuki's face twisted into a sneer as he drew a giant shuriken. And now, I'll kill you and become a hero to the village. Naruto, don't listen to that traitor, Iruka urged, stepping slightly in front of Naruto. Mizuki laughed coldly. Why protect him, Iruka? He's the one who killed your family. Iruka's fists clenched, his anger palpable. I'm not letting an idiot like you get that scroll. Mizuki's eyes narrowed. You're the idiot. Naruto is a monster like me, he shot back, venom dripping from every word. Anyone with that scroll can do anything they want. The Kyuubi would abuse its power. Ah, you're right, Iruka conceded, his voice heavy, causing Naruto's heart to sink. But then Iruka's tone shifted, firm and resolute. But Naruto is different. He's one of my best students. He works hard. He's not the Kyuubi. He's Uzumaki Naruto of Konohagakure. Mizuki's face contorted with rage. Then die, he screamed, hurling the shuriken with lethal force. As Iruka unleashed his fire style, fireball jutsu against Mizuki's incoming Fuma shuriken, Naruto could tell it was a decoy. His suspicion was confirmed when another shuriken, the real threat, came hurtling from the side. Iruka's body tensed, his eyes widening with a fear that momentarily paralyzed him. It was clear in his stance, he was prepared to sacrifice himself for Naruto. He couldn't let that happen. Giving Iruka a reassuring smile, Naruto signaled his readiness to take over. Iruka understood immediately, nodding slightly. Naruto's hands buzzed with chakra as he reached out, snatching the blade of the flying shuriken from the air. Its momentum was strong, but he used it to his advantage, allowing it to spin him around. His feet found their pivot, rooted firmly to the ground as Iruka's fireball exploded midair, providing a smokescreen. With the world momentarily hidden behind the fiery curtain, Naruto whipped around on his heel. The motion was fluid, almost instinctual. Every muscle, every fiber in his body coiled like a spring, ready to release the energy. His fingers tightened around the shuriken, the metal cool and unyielding beneath his grip. As the explosion's echo thudded in his ears, Naruto launched the shuriken back at Mizuki. Fuin. In the brief moment Naruto had touched the blade, he had managed to transfer an explosive seal onto the weapon. Boom. A massive explosion echoed through the treetops, and through the settling smoke, Mizuki's body thudded to the ground. Although it seemed like he might be dead, Naruto knew better. The seal he used was only medium grade, a chunin could survive it. Sure enough, Mizuki was horribly burned, his clothes nearly destroyed, hanging in tatters from his charred skin. Then something unexpected happened. A weird purplish chakra began to exude from his body. Naruto noticed a fuinjutsu seal on Mizuki's forearm, a green skull with an open jaw, that seemed to pulse with dark energy. As the chakra enveloped him, Mizuki's body began to heal, muscles bulking up, tiger-like stripes appearing on his skin, and his nails morphing into sharp claws. Mizuki roared, more beast than man now. Name: Tsuji Mizuki. Status: infected by prototype cursed seal. Title: Academy Assistant Teacher Right Pointing Arrow Trader of Konoha. Level: 13. Class: Civilian Shinobi. Race: Human. HP: 2350, 2350 and 5350 5350ths. AC: 30 right pointing arrow 20. CP: 2K 2K right pointing arrow 1.5K 2K. Lineage traits: none. Class features: Mask of a Shinobi. Feats: Deceiver. Stats: STR: 20 right pointing arrow 30. Dex: 25 right pointing arrow 35. Con: 15. Int: 13 right pointing arrow 3. Wis: 12 right pointing arrow 2. Cha: 9. VIT: 26 right pointing arrow 36. Luck: 3. Allies. Equipment: redacted right pointing arrow none. Description: a talentless orphan born during the Second Shinobi War, never amounted to anything, never praised until he met Redacted, and gained everything he ever wanted. To repay Redacted, he was given an order to steal the Forbidden Scroll of Seals, and this gave him an opportunity to repay his master and also get his revenge on the Kyuubi for killing his wife and their unborn child. Feeling the raw, murderous intent from Mizuki wiped any pity from Naruto's heart. He attempted to trap him with Genjutsu ensnarement, but the wild, chaotic chakra surging through Mizuki's veins shattered his attempt before it could take hold. Okay, let's beat him the old-fashioned way, Naruto declared, glancing at Iruka for agreement. I'll be the DPS and you'll be utility support. What? I'll attack, you help, Naruto simplified, hoping Iruka would catch on quickly. Without waiting for a full agreement, Naruto launched into the multi-shadow clone jutsu. Clouds of smoke burst around them, and he felt a chunk of his chakra drain away as over 40 clones materialized, circling them. He could almost see Iruka's hesitance dissolve as he realized the seriousness of their strategy. What do I need to do? Can you provide something like a smoke cloud to hide us? Iruka nodded. Will you be able to see? Yes, Naruto assured him, remembering the brief flashes of insight from the clones he had sent earlier to test Mizuki's reactions. Earth style. Dust cloud. A thick cloud of dust enveloped the forest around them, masking their movements. Let's go, boys, Naruto yelled, enthusiasm spiked with adrenaline. He spat out a mouthful of sand that had found its way in during the commotion. Yada, echoed his army of clones, who also spat out their own mouthfuls of sand. Iruka watched, a look of mild regret passing over his face at letting Naruto fight, but there was no turning back now. As Mizuki's more animalistic form rolled and slashed, his claws tore through another one of Naruto's shadow clones, dissipating it into smoke. He was stronger and faster with this new power, but he also seemed less strategic, more driven by raw instinct. As he swiped at another clone, Naruto took advantage of his predictability. A clone, using Flash Fist, zipped right into Mizuki's personal space. Mizuki snapped viciously at it, aiming to bite the clone's head off. Naruto reacted instantly, pivoting on his heel using the swirling kata, a clockwise movement, to evade and counter. He leapt up and delivered a forceful kick to the back of Mizuki's head. Sheer force, he murmured as his foot connected, and Mizuki's head smashed into the ground. Mizuki grunted, staggering to his feet, only to be met by another clone that kicked his head like it was a soccer ball. The sheer force jutsu propelled him like a ragdoll, slamming him against a giant stone. Before he could recover, another clone accelerated with flash fist and drove a knee into his stomach, using sheer force to shatter the stone behind him. The clone vanished in a puff of smoke, and yet another clone swooped in, delivering an uppercut that launched Mizuki skyward. A dozen clones simultaneously executed fire-style fireball jutsus, lighting up the night and the entire forest around them. Mizuki let out a roar, filled with raw chakra, but before he could react further, Naruto propelled himself into the sky. His legs stretched out, armored with earth-style diamond skin. He focused every ounce of his chakra into the heel of his leg, maximizing the speed of expulsion for maximum impact. As Mizuki twisted midair, reacting to Naruto's ascent, he timed his attack perfectly. Naruto's heel kick, powered by every ounce of chakra he could muster, connected squarely with Mizuki's cheek. The impact felt like striking a sledgehammer against a wall. There was a solid, satisfying thud as his foot met Mizuki's face. The force of Naruto's kick sent Mizuki hurtling down into the inferno below, a cascade of fireballs that the clones had unleashed. Mizuki's body, covered in soot and embers, crashed into the forest floor, creating a shockwave that tore through the area. Trees bent and snapped, debris flew in all directions, and a cloud of dust and leaves mushroomed into the air. The ground itself seemed to shudder under the force of Mizuki's descent, leaving a crater rimmed with scorched earth and splintered wood. Naruto's chest heaved with rapid breath. The physical demand of the maneuver was intense. He could feel every muscle in his body tensing, his heart pounding against his ribs. Yet, there was a clarity in that moment, the satisfaction of executing a move exactly as he had planned. Landing softly among the broken foliage, Naruto steadied himself, his eyes never leaving the crumpled form of Mizuki in the center of the crater. His body was on high alert, every sense sharpened, ready for any sign that the battle wasn't over. But as the silence stretched, broken only by the crackling of residual fires and the distant calls of startled wildlife, he allowed himself a brief moment to relax. That was for everything you've done. Naruto's gazed hard on the defeated form before him. Not bad, huh, he said, turning to Iruka, who stood with his jaw practically hitting the floor. Quest. Knowledge is power. Status. Successfully completed. Objectives completed. Infiltrate the Hokage's library. Escape undeterred with the Forbidden Scroll of Seals. Bring the Forbidden Scroll of Seals to the secret location. Select and learn a skill from Forbidden Scroll of Seals. Protect the Forbidden Scroll of Seals. Protect Iruka. Defeat Mizuki. Bonus objectives completed. Distract the Sandaime and escape his wrath. Select and learn an additional skill from the Forbidden Scroll of Seals. Rewards granted. 2,000 express per objective. 1,000 express for bonus objectives. 10,000 ryo upon completion of all objectives. Increase in reputation with Konoha. A scenario that will enable Naruto Uzumaki to learn the truth about why he is hated. Bounty awarded. 15,000 ryo for 2G Mizuki, plus 100 reputation with Konoha. 12 years before present day. Under the dim glow of lanterns strung across the market of Konoha, Mizuki and Tsubaki strolled hand in hand. The night brought a coolness that eased the day's heat, and the bustling sounds of the market filled the air with a lively buzz. Tsubaki, with her short, elegant black hair and refined features, turned heads even in the simple act of walking beside him. Wait up, Tsubaki. Tsubaki turned, her smile radiant. Keep up. Okay, Mizuki replied, a hint of defeat in his voice as he quickened his steps. Her hand found his, her grip firm and reassuring. Then, with a gesture filled with meaning, she placed his hand on her stomach. Look, I'm sure you'll get the position of a teacher at the academy. I know it, and he knows it, she said softly, nodding towards her belly, their unborn child. Mizuki sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. Thanks, but I heard that because of the mission controversy, I won't get the job, he confessed, turning his gaze away to hide the worry etching his features. It had only been a month since his promotion to Chunin, and his first mission with a new team had ended in disaster. They had been attacked. One teammate was killed, another grievously wounded. Mizuki had made a split-second decision to kill the liability to ensure the mission's success. But back in Konoha, rumors swirled, accusing him of murder. An investigation cleared him for lack of evidence, but the damage was done. The whispers continued, staining his reputation and jeopardizing his chance at a stable, safer job within the academy walls. So unfair, Mizuki thought bitterly as they paused by a prize stand. I just made sure the mission was a 100% success, yet some rumors are keeping me from a safer position for my family. Tsubaki's voice drew him back from his brooding. Come on, win me something. Mizuki managed a small smile and played one of the games, winning her a simple children's toy bracelet. Why are you looking at it like that? It's just a children's toy bracelet. So, you won this for me, and now that makes this a national treasure. Mizuki laughed, feeling a momentary lift in his spirits. Look, I'll try again for the position, and once we have enough money, let's have a proper wedding this time, none of that paper stuff. But that's expensive. And you deserve every dime that is spent, Mizuki responded firmly, his gaze meeting hers with a resolve that felt unshakable at that moment. Her blush, the soft lighting of the market, the hum of the night around them, it all coalesced into a moment of pure, simple happiness. But just then, they felt it, a disturbance that seemed to ripple through the air, a prelude to something neither of them could have anticipated. Mizuki's breath hitched, his heart thundering painfully against his ribs as he and everyone around him felt it. A suffocating, mind-numbing killer intent that paralyzed the market. Civilians stood frozen, their eyes wide with terror, while the ninjas barely managed to keep their bodies moving, reinforcing themselves with chakra just to remain upright. His gaze was drawn irresistibly upwards, and what he saw stole the very breath from his lungs. Looming over the city was a giant creature of nightmares, the Kyubi no Yoko. Its fierce red eyes and sharp fangs were a stark contrast against the backdrop of a city ablaze. Dark, voluminous tails fanned out aggressively, its fearsome demeanor enhanced by the ominous glow of the flames that cast an eerie light on the scattered clouds above. The buildings appeared diminutive and frail under the massive form of the monster. As the Kyubi roared, the sheer force of its cry shattered windows and ruptured the eardrums of unprotected civilians, while the ninjas hastily bolstered their defenses with chakra. Mizuki's heart raced with dread, his body frozen in terror. Then, he saw it. The Kyubi's tail, a massive, dark appendage, swung with destructive force directly towards the market. Mizuki's mind screamed for him to move, to escape, but his body betrayed him, rooted to the spot in utter helplessness. Is this how I die? In that heartbeat of terror, Mizuki felt a sudden force hurl him to the side. He spun through the air, disoriented, only to see Tsubaki where he had stood. Her face was serene, almost smiling, as she pushed him out of harm's way. The Kyubi's tail crashed down where they had just been, turning everything to chaos and destruction. The market was obliterated in an instant, and Tsubaki. She was gone, reduced to nothing in the wake of the beast's fury. Mizuki hit the ground hard, rolling to a stop covered in the blood that splattered from the impact, Tsubaki's blood. He lay there, stunned and shattered, his eyes fixed on the broken bracelet that lay amidst the debris, a child's toy, now a relic of the life he had just lost. His body trembled uncontrollably, tears mingling with the blood on his face as the realization set in. Tsubaki was gone. The fear, the grief, it was overwhelming, drowning him in a sea of despair as around him, the city continued to burn and ninjas rallied to a fight they could barely hope to win. As the third Hokage's staff rallied to push the Kyubi out of the village, and ninjas scrambled to aid in the defense, Mizuki walked through the turmoil detached and distant. He clutched a small bracelet tightly in his hand. His steps were automatic, devoid of direction or purpose, as if he were just going through the motions of living. Around him, the chaos of battle roared, the guttural cries of the Kyubi, the sharp commands of the ninja, the panicked screams of civilians. Yet, these sounds seemed distant, muffled as though he were submerged in deep water, separate from the reality everyone else occupied. His gaze was vacant, his eyes not really seeing the destruction or the effort to contain it. Instead, they stared blankly ahead, unfocused and uncomprehending. Everything appeared to him as a hazy, indistinct blur, unreal, like a dream one might struggle to remember. He was shell-shocked, overwhelmed by the sudden and complete loss of everything he held dear, his wife, his unborn child, his future, all obliterated in an instant by a force so monstrous, so beyond his or anyone's control, it rendered him utterly helpless. Mizuki's home, or what was left of it, loomed ahead, a crumpled heap of debris that no longer bore any resemblance to the sanctuary it had been. He stopped, his feet grinding to a halt as his eyes took in the devastation. This couldn't be real, it had to be a nightmare. But the cold bite of the night air, the acrid smell of smoke and burning, and the sharp pain from the gravel digging into his palms as he fell to his knees told him otherwise. He broke then, a ragged sob tearing from his throat, raw and loud in the eerie silence that followed the distant battle. The bracelet fell from his limp hand, landing softly among the ashes. Tears finally came, hot and unrelenting, streaming down his face as he gathered the dirt and rubble in his hands, trying futilely to piece back together the remnants of his shattered life. Why? He screamed at the uncaring sky, his voice breaking. I did everything right. Why her? Why us? His body shook with each sob. Mizuki sat there, his gaze fixed on the ground, not knowing how much time had passed until he heard a voice break through the fog on his mind. Mizuki, finally I found you. As Iruka wrapped his arms around him in a comforting hug, Mizuki felt an odd urge to unleash all his pent-up anger and despair on him but restrained himself, or perhaps it was the grief that dulled his desire to lash out. Iruka stayed by his side for hours, murmuring words meant to soothe, but Mizuki barely listened. To Iruka, they were friends, but to Mizuki, Iruka had always been something else, a benchmark against which he measured his own inadequacies. Iruka, who was always more talented, more respected, yet never aspired to anything greater. Mizuki had simmered with jealousy, cloaking it in a facade of friendship, using their closeness as a means to keep prodding at Iruka's contentment, trying to find some crack in his serene existence. In his twisted view, Mizuki had won the only competition that mattered to him. He had won Tsubaki's heart, triumphing over Iruka in the silent war he believed they were fighting. Now, that victory tasted bitter. Tsubaki was gone, and with her, the significance of his triumph over Iruka. Mizuki barely noticed when Iruka left. His departure was a non-event, insignificant in the grand scale of Mizuki's new reality. What did friendship matter now? What did petty rivalries matter when he had been rendered so utterly powerless and bereft? All that mattered now was power, the kind of power that could prevent him from ever feeling this helpless again. The kind of power that would ensure the world could never again take anything from him. Driven by this dark resolve, Mizuki knew there was only one person who could give him what he craved. Orochimaru. Present day. Mizuki's consciousness jolted back harshly as he found himself being escorted by Anbu. His body felt disconnected, numb, he couldn't feel his legs. Glancing down, horror settled in as he saw Lord Orochimaru's cursed seal on his arm, now buried under hundreds of additional seals. His mind scrambled to piece together the last events he remembered, an attack on Iruka and that demon brat, followed by an explosion. The cursed seal must have activated. Before he could process more, he was roughly thrown into a prison cell. The walls of the Konoha Strict Correctional Facility closed in around him, a place rumored for detaining ninjas until their death, offering no comfort, only a stark 6 feet by 6 feet cell. Yet, this cell felt unusually spacious, which puzzled him briefly in his haze. Suddenly, a sound echoed as something hit the ground. The darkness in the cell parted with moonlight, revealing a young boy, skin pale as death, making some sort of painting on the wall. How do you like my painting, loser? Anger flared momentarily in Mizuki, only to be replaced by shock as he felt arms wrap around him from behind. Long time no see, Mizuki, a familiar voice cooed, a voice that dredged up depths of emotion Mizuki hadn't felt since before the disaster that took everything from him. Turning, he saw Tsubaki, or someone who looked hauntingly like her. How? He managed to choke out, tears welling up in his eyes. His speech was slurred and unclear, his missing teeth making each word a struggle. Oh, that's not important. I have a question for you. After that, we can be together again. The vision of Tsubaki spoke smoothly, her voice unnervingly calm. Anything. Did Orochimaru order you to steal the forbidden scroll of seals? No, I just wanted to steal it for him, to show I was worthy of his respect. Laughter filled the cell, cruel and mocking, coming from both Tsubaki and the strange boy. You're supposed to laugh when someone does something pathetic, right? The boy commented, sending shivers down Mizuki's spine. What? As the illusion shattered, Mizuki found himself not in a cell but in an interrogation room. He faced the strange boy, seated coolly across from him, with two Anbu stationed silently behind. The boy's next words sent a shiver down Mizuki's spine. Hey, let me give you and your dead wife a stupid reunion, the boy taunted, pointing at a canvas painted with Tsubaki's image. Suddenly, the ink began to drip from the painting, morphing into a humanoid figure of Tsubaki made entirely of ink. The sight filled Mizuki with a cold dread, a premonition of his looming death. Please, Mizuki started, desperation in his voice, only to be met with the boy's unsettling smile, a facade, like a mask worn to conceal true intentions. Who are you? I don't know, but if I had to pick a name, I'll call myself Sai, the boy replied casually, snapping his fingers. The ink-formed Tsubaki moved behind Mizuki, gripping his head firmly on both sides. Why are you doing this? The hawk bids you goodbye. The name, the hawk, echoed in his mind, a shadowy figure within Konoha, a supposed ally under Orochimaru's command. This figure had directed him, fed him plans, and now, seemingly, had led him to his end. Why am I being discarded? Mizuki's thoughts spiraled. Was the hawk never really working for Orochimaru? Was this all a setup? Every mission, every act of sabotage against the academy students, even the orchestration of the theft of the Forbidden Scroll, it all came back to him in a rush. He had worked diligently, believing he was accruing favor with Orochimaru, aiming for a rank and respect he deserved. I've been such a fool. The ink-formed Tsubaki tightened its grip, a cruel imitation of the wife he had lost, turning his memories into weapons against him. As the life was literally squeezed out of him, his eyes locked onto the young boy named Sai, whose expression bore a dispassionate smile. Loser. It was a confirmation of all his failures, a man who had lost everything, manipulated and discarded by forces greater than him. As his vision blurred into the encroaching darkness, Mizuki's last thoughts were filled with regret and a profound realization of his own insignificance. He had been a pawn in a game too complex for him to ever control, and now, he was paying the ultimate price. Crack. Sai stood over Mizuki's lifeless body, the head reduced to a gruesome goop of blood and bone. Relay to Lord Danzo, Sai instructed, his voice even and detached. Operative Mizuki has been neutralized. The disinformation campaign is complete, and it has been verified. Mizuki had no affiliations with Orochimaru. Affirmative. Ensure all traces are scrubbed. Implement Protocol Echo Romeo 4 to secure the perimeter and initiate a misinformation loop to cover this extraction. The Anbu headquarters, standing for Ansatsu Senjutsu Tokushu Butai, Special Assassination and Tactical Squad, held an office that was as unremarkable as they come. Plain, functional, and devoid of any embellishment, it was clear that the village saw no reason to allocate any of its budget to spruce up a space meant purely for formalities. The commander sat engrossed in a report from the Rice country about a series of unsettling kidnappings around the border. The mask, a white porcelain with the likeness of a dragon, was marked distinctly with 3 red fang-like symbols on its forehead. The front door is there, Dragon stated, his voice cutting through the room's stillness. From the shadows, a figure emerged, his presence contradictory to the stealth expected of a ninja. He was an old man, seemingly frail, leaning on a cane for support, with gray, shaggy hair and notable features, a bandaged right eye and an X-shaped scar on his chin. The War Hawk of Konoha. Shimura Danzo. Without a word, Danzo tossed a file onto Dragon's desk, prompting only a raised eyebrow from the commander. The file bore the name Naruto Uzumaki. Looks like you have caught the attention of someone you shouldn't have, boy. A taijutsu style that doesn't exist in Konoha and a style that belongs to the Senju clan, he read aloud, glancing briefly at the emotionless Danzo. Kenjutsu skills on the same level as a samurai. Having a few unknown jutsus that are B to a rank. His eyes darted across the pages. When he reached the section on Fuinjutsu, He paused, rereading it several times, alarmed by the depth of knowledge the Jinchuriki appeared to possess. What do you want? Dragon finally asked, locking eyes with Danzo. Recruit him into the Anbu and find out his secrets. Either make the boy into a weapon for Konoha or find out if his little secret can be replicated, Danzo instructed, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. You think Hiruzen would agree? Use what you can and can't. Hiruzen trusts you. Exploit it and ensure that the mission is completed. Danzo pressed on, beginning to unwrap the bandage around his eye, revealing burnt scarred skin and an eyelid-less Sharingan eye. Is that necessary? Dragon asked, a hint of resistance in his voice. You are resisting. It is just countermeasures for if you go against Konoha's interests. Konoha are your interests. My interests are Konoha's interests, Danzo declared, the Sharingan in his eye beginning to spin and change as the Warhawk reinforced Koto Amatsukami on the Anbu commander. There is absolutely no way, Hiruzen Sarutobi said firmly to his cloaked, masked interlocutor, with all the might his 60-year-old, war veteran frame could muster. And the so-called professor could muster a lot of might. He will go to waste. He will have a normal team and learn normally. Just like he was supposed to have a normal childhood. Dragon interrupted the cage, their distorted voice cutting through the old man's answer. I will not listen to your recriminations, said the Hokage, his tone commanding. I followed the will of a dying, delirious man. And you will listen to my recriminations, Hiruzen. You made mistakes, many, not all of the same gravity, but it is time you admit to it and handle the fallout. I offer you a way out of it. There is no reason for him to join. There is no need to put him through this grinder. How much more time will you coddle him? How much more time will you hide the truth from him? We are ninja, Hiruzen. Dragon exclaimed, twitching slightly, his raised tone the only mark of his agitation. Or are you too cowardly? Is that it? Will you wait for your successor to break him the news? Killing intent exploded and drowned the office, bending the floor and cracking the large pane of glass behind the old man's desk. Watch your tongue, Dragon. You are talking to your Hokage, bit Hiruzen in an ice-cold voice. Then assume this damned hat and the responsibilities that go with it. The answer was equally cold. Do you think you are the only one too old for your job? This mask is just as heavy. An uneasy silence blanketed the room, and the Hokage could only palm his face in weariness. Forgive me, Dragon, Hiruzen sighed. Still, I see no reason for the boy to join the Corps. What is your plan for him? The classic balance, under Jonin Hatake. Your officers are definitely out of their minds. Have you even looked at the profiling? The Hokage took a breath in. No. Dragon resisted the urge to slap his forehead. The mask was quite resistant. It would hurt needlessly. It is a disaster waiting to happen. He definitely won't fit, and Hataki's own situation will probably make it worse. No, Hiruzen, it's a sad plan and it's going to fail. Anbu is not a way to begin your ninja career normally. Dragon threw his arms in the air. He will never live normally, Hiruzen. You need to accept that. He did not have a normal childhood, and he certainly won't have a normal ninja career. Now, your decision already made his infancy a living hell. Do you want to do the same with his ninja life? The Hokage released the breath he had been holding, and his shoulders sagged under his white robes. Anbu will warp him. Being a ninja will warp him, Hiruzen. Now you must decide if it will also kill him or not. You will not let this issue go, am I right? Absolutely not, Hiruzen. He has too much potential. He is too much potential. You will not use him, Dragon. Hiruzen. I know you love the kid. Hell, he is pretty likable, but that does not change what he contains. We never had to funnel them through Anbu before. Even behind the mask, Hiruzen could feel the deadpan look Dragon was giving him. Because the first was already an accomplished ninja, and the second status was actually a secret. Hiruzen, this discussion is over. I am taking the boy. If you still protest, I will make use of very, very tiresome legalese and reveal some secrets to have my way. It will give you paperwork, and I'll still have him. Dragon stated in a tone that was final. Do we make this the easy or the hard way? Hiruzen paled. Whether it was at the threat of secrets being revealed or supplementary paperwork added to the pile, none could tell. He sighed. The easy way, the old man said, distraught. Dragon nodded and gave his Hokage an eye roll so powerful, the old man could hear it. By the flame, don't treat him like he is already dead, Hiruzen. I'll make sure he'll visit you. And if you desire, he'll have a certain talk with you, but remember this, Naruto Uzumaki belongs to the Anbu of Konoha. Hiruzen sighed. Let the boy decide. If it's his choice to join, I won't interfere, but... This time Dragon felt not Hiruzen but the god of shinobi gazing upon him, the threat clear. Understood. Sitting in the Hokage's office, Naruto felt a familiar nervousness, like when he was 6 and almost got caught rigging a prank. Only, this wasn't about a childish joke, it was serious, and he could sense the gravity of the situation pressing down on him. So, Naruto-kun, you've had quite the adventure tonight. Was he testing him? Yeah, it was an adventure, not all good either, he admitted, trying to gauge the Hokage's reaction. Yes, you saw tonight one of the darker aspects of shinobi life. Traitors come and go, and they all must be dealt with eventually. Despite your horrendous mistake, you have done a great service to this village in putting a stop to him, the Hokage continued, his eyes locking onto Naruto's with an intensity that made him want to look away. I understand, Gigi, Naruto said, the familiar term slipping out more from habit than anything. So, what's my punishment? I don't think punishment will really be necessary this time, but please, don't let this ever happen again. Of course not, Naruto quickly agreed, relief flooding through him. I had no idea Mizuki was trying to trick me, I had no reason not to trust him. The words flowed too smoothly, and Naruto could feel his own discomfort with the lie. He knew his face must be betraying his true thoughts, but he hoped the old man's affection for him might blur his perception. Despite Naruto's clumsy attempt at deception, Hiruzen didn't seem to question his sincerity, maybe out of guilt or trust, Naruto didn't know. And that is exactly why you are not in trouble. It is also what allows me to protect you from certain elements within the village. Because of me being the Kyuubi? Naruto asked, the words heavy on his tongue. You are not now, nor have you ever been the Kyuubi. That beast is sealed within you. The conversation took a deeper turn, and suddenly, another voice, gruff and distorted, filled the room. Naruto stiffened, fighting the urge to whirl around as the Anbu commander appeared behind him. Naruto, meet Dragon, general of the Anbu of Konoha. Dragon, Naruto, the Hokage introduced. The room felt colder, the weight of the Anbu's presence undeniable. Is it about what Mizuki said? Name, Dragon. Real name, redacted. Status, redacted. Title, redacted. Level, redacted. Class, redacted. Race, redacted. HP, redacted. CP, redacted. AAC, redacted. Lineage traits, redacted. Class features, redacted. Feats, redacted. Stats, redacted. Allies, redacted. Equipment, redacted. Battle power, redacted. Description: Dragon is the general of the Anbu division of Konoha. He wants to recruit Naruto Uzumaki into the Anbu because of redacted. Note: Dragon's level and battle power is extremely greater than the player's. Removal of redactions is possible through engagement in combat or leveling up. The description words crashed over Naruto like a tsunami, impossible to comprehend all at once. He was being recruited into the Anbu. The thought raced through his mind, wild and chaotic. It felt like some bizarre, far-fetched dream, him, an Anbu. The reality of it seemed as likely as discovering he was some sort of ramen royalty from a distant kingdom. As Naruto struggled to wrap his head around this, Dragon dropped another bombshell, one that gripped his attention with iron claws. You have to know the truth about your status. His status. What more could there be to this night? Mizuki told you were the Kyuubi. It is not true. You are the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. The Hokage winced at his bluntness. Jinchuriki. Me, he said, not as a question but as a realization, a fact settling into the pit of his stomach, heavy and cold. Yes. But Then, Naruto's mind raced. I am not a demon, then. He whispered. Just a prison for one. Relief mingled with a deep, aching confusion. Of course not, my boy. The Hokage's voice was heated, vehement. And allow no one to call you that. His words were meant to comfort, but they opened a floodgate. But then, why? Why did they treat me like that? The room was thick with heavy sighs from both the Hokage and dragon. They fear you, Naruto. You are a reminder of the pain the Kyuubi caused, the Anbu said, his tone harsh with truth. But I did not ask for it. Naruto protested, tears breaking free despite his efforts to hold them back. It wasn't his fault, yet he carried the burden, the hatred. The Hokage was quick to wrap Naruto in a hug, a rare comfort in a world that often felt so harsh and cold. Of course not, Naruto. But the pain the Kyuubi caused turned to fear, and fear to hate. Rather than see you as the hero you are, they blame their sorrow on you. They decided to cling to their hate and blame you, rather than honor the sacrifice of the one they claim they love, Dragon added, his voice cutting through the air. The hug broke, and Naruto stepped back, wiping his face fiercely. He sat back down, hunched over with his head bowed, arms crossed and tucked tightly between his knees, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on him. Dragon and Hiruzen watched quietly, letting Naruto process the torrent of emotions crashing through him. Why was this unfair burden thrust upon me? He whispered, the words barely escaping his lips. Naruto. Hiruzen began, his voice filled with sympathy, but Dragon cut him off sharply. Life is unfair, kid. Deal with it. Naruto looked up sharply, his gaze fierce as he glared at the man. He didn't care how strong or important Dragon was, he wanted to punch him. 8 years of isolation, of glares, whispers, mocks. Years of sabotage, name-calling, refusal of services, and loneliness. All because of a crime he didn't commit. A crime of simply existing, bearing a beast he never asked to carry. Naruto's chakra flared, the floor cracking under the force as his emotions surged out of control. Dragon didn't flinch but instead pulled out a katana. Hiruzen was alarmed, but Dragon pointed the handle towards Naruto. Everyone in this world carries some burden. Some have less, some have more. There is no such thing as a burden less human. But there are those who either choose to fight or give up. Which one are you? Naruto remained silent, digesting his words. Naruto Uzumaki, I have read your file. While your anger is justified, think about it. Does your anger do anything in this situation? Your anger won't make those villagers change. Your anger won't make the Kyuubi go away. Your anger won't change the past. But your actions can change the future, just like how you changed. No friends to being friends with Hinata Hyuga and Tenten Higurashi. Naruto stared at the katana, his eyes locked onto it as if it held answers. He exhaled slowly, feeling the hot anger dissolve into a cold resolve. Dragon was right. Naruto's past, filled with pain and loneliness, was not something he could change. But the future, that was his to shape. If he continued to let anger control him, he'd only be fulfilling the fears of those who hated him without reason. The room felt smaller as he stood there, his brain churning with thoughts accelerated by spirit possession. Everything around him took on a sepia tint, details sharpening under the skill's influence. He was piecing together a puzzle he hadn't known existed until moments ago. Why me? His hands clenched into fists, knuckles whitening. It wasn't random. Nothing in the shinobi world ever was. There had to be a reason. It couldn't have been a matter of convenience. He wasn't just any baby, he was selected. As he pieced together the information, a sinking feeling took hold. The Kyuubi had not been near the hospital during its rampage. The old man had said his parents died in that attack. Were they civilians caught in the crossfire, or something more? The notion struck hard. What if his existence had been so insignificant that his parents hadn't even been present at his birth? Had they already been victims by the time the Kyuubi was sealed within him? The thought was chilling. The fourth, killed my real parents, Naruto concluded aloud, the words slipping out flat, devoid of emotion, not because he felt none, but because he was overwhelmed by too much. What? Hiruzen looked like he'd been slapped. Naruto, what gave you this idea? Why me? Why not one of the clan heirs? There was a whole generation to choose from, but he picked a nameless orphan. Doesn't that make you wonder? Naruto pushed, each word sharpened by logic and a growing sense of betrayal. Hiruzen's face was a mask of shock, trying to form words that wouldn't come. And no, Naruto, of course your parents didn't. Then they abandoned me, disgusted by me, Naruto shot back, his voice rising. Of course not, Naruto. Then why me? Who were my parents? Where are they now? Why did they let the damned Yondaime use me like some container? The questions poured out faster than he could catch his breath. I cannot. Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto's head snapped towards the source, dragon. What? Suddenly, the air thickened with killing intent so potent it was almost visible. In a blur of motion faster than Naruto could track, the Hokage had dragon by the throat, hoisted off the ground. The threat in his voice was unmistakable and chilling. One more word and I'll have you executed. But dragon, struggling for breath, managed to gasp out, Kushina, Uzumaki. The room froze. Time seemed to slow as Naruto absorbed those words, those syllables that shaped the identity of a woman he never knew but was connected to him more deeply than anyone else. You knew, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the pounding in his ears. All this time, you knew. And you told me nothing. The betrayal stung, cutting deeper than any kunai could. It wasn't just that they had kept this from him, it was who had kept it from him. Hiruzen, the old man he had trusted, looked at him then. The pain in Hiruzen's eyes mirrored Naruto's own, but it was no comfort. His expression was etched with regret, but it was too late for regret. Feeling a cold, hollow emptiness spreading through his chest, Naruto stood. His body moved on its own, stiff and mechanical. Hokage-sama, may I be excused? His voice was emotionless, detached, as if belonging to someone else. Naruto. By your leave, Hokage-sama, Naruto interrupted, not wanting to hear any excuses or apologies. They wouldn't change the facts. They wouldn't undo the lies. Hiruzen sighed, a deep, weary sound that seemed to carry the weight of the world. Dismissed. Genin Uzumaki. Naruto didn't wait another second. He turned and walked swiftly out of the office, each step echoing hollowly in the silent hallway. As the door closed behind him, he felt the finality of it, like closing a chapter in a book. Outside, the cool air of the evening brushed against his face, but it did nothing to soothe the burning anger and confusion inside him. As he walked away from the tower, the faces of the villagers blurred into a sea of indistinguishable features, none of them knowing the storm of emotions raging inside their village's most notorious prankster. Today, he wasn't just the village pariah or the prankster, he was a boy betrayed by the closest thing he had to a family. And that hurt more than any prank gone wrong. Naruto barely noticed the lights flashing in the corner of his vision, his ears ringing as if they might burst. Dragon's harsh words, "Life is unfair, kid. Deal with it," repeated in his mind, echoing louder with each step he took among the blur of civilian faces around him. The wind cut through him like daggers, each gust tightening its grip around his chest, making it hard to draw a full breath. Sweat trickled down his forehead, his breathing grew shallow, and a dizzying sensation overtook him. It felt like a command more than a thought. He needed to run, to escape the weight of everything crashing down on him. Without realizing it, his body reacted on its own, leaping onto the nearest rooftop. As he moved, his face contorted with distress, his brow furrowed, his jaw clenched tight, and his eyes widened in a wild, desperate search. Kushina Uzumaki. The name strangled his thoughts, tightening around his neck like a noose. I need to run. The thought was frantic, almost wild, driving him forward. Before he knew it, he was standing in front of his apartment, panting, gripping the cold metal of the doorknob as if it were a lifeline. He. The words tumbled from his lips in a panicked whisper as he fumbled with the lock, his hands trembling uncontrollably. His face paled and then flushed with a rush of blood as his heart hammered against his chest. He was sweating profusely now, each breath shorter and more desperate than the last. As the door finally swung open, his legs buckled beneath him. The ground seemed to tilt and sway under him. A few minutes ago. Naruto's apartment. Tenten couldn't suppress a grin, watching Hinata plot her playful prank on Naruto. It was a sight to behold, seeing her friend evolve from the timid girl who once hovered in Naruto's shadow to someone who much more confident and comfortable. The plan was bake a cake shaped like ramen to fool Naruto. Simple, harmless, and utterly Hinata. They were both in Naruto's apartment, having keys and all, prepared for the surprise. But as the hours passed with no sign of Naruto, the light mood began to dim. It was getting late, turning their wait into a stretch of worry. Tenten glanced at Hinata, noting the concern etching her features. Hinata, are you sure you can be out of the clan this late? No, I told my father that I am going to a friend's party, and he actually allowed me to stay out all night. In his words, I am a genin now, I can be trusted like an adult. Tenten raised an eyebrow, impressed. Things going great with your family? She probed, recalling the strict stories Neji often shared about the main Hyuga family. Father is still strict, but he is taking things more slowly and tries to be more. Hinata paused, searching for the right word. Friendly. In a sense, Hinata replied. It was clearly unusual for her to see her father taking an interest in her day. So, good. Yeah, good. Where the hell is Naruto? As if on cue, the door swung open. Both girls perked up, ready to spring the prank. But the sight that greeted them froze them in place. Naruto stumbled in, his face covered in sweat, eyes wide with fear. He leaned heavily against the door frame, his legs shaking uncontrollably before giving out, sending him crashing to the floor. He's having a panic attack, Tenten blurted out, her heart racing as she and Hinata rushed to his side. Dropping to the floor beside Naruto, Tenten took his hand, trying to steady him. Naruto, look at me, she instructed, her voice firm yet gentle, trying to anchor him back to the present. You're safe here, okay. Just breathe with us. Hinata was already on his other side, murmuring soothing words. Tenten quickly helped Naruto into a seated position on the floor, her movements precise but gentle. Let's breathe together. In for 4 seconds, hold, and out for 4. I'm right here, she instructed, demonstrating deep, steady breaths herself. She could feel the tension in her own shoulders as she tried to stay calm for Naruto's sake, her heart beating loudly in her ears. Dim the lights, close the curtains. Hinata nodded without a word, her movements quick and efficient as she adjusted the room to be more comforting. Returning her attention to Naruto, Tenten took his hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. Stay with me, focus on my voice. You're doing great, just keep breathing. Meanwhile, Hinata, having finished with the curtains and lights, approached them again. Tenten glanced at her and said, tell him what we were going to do. Hinata took a deep breath, trying to steady the tremble in her voice as she knelt beside Naruto. She could feel her heart pounding against her chest, the weight of her own anxieties pressing down on her, but she pushed them aside, focusing solely on Naruto. Naruto-kun, I made you this ramen cake, she began, her voice soft and shaky despite her efforts to sound calm. She held the cake in front of him, hoping the familiar, playful shape would bring a spark of joy to his eyes. We were going to prank you. She managed a small smile, though it was more for his benefit than her own. You would have totally fallen for it, I guarantee it. And then we would have had cake. Her words trailed off as she added, almost whispering, Naruto, thank you for being my friend. The simple confession brought a sudden surge of emotion, and Hinata quickly closed her eyes to stop the tears that threatened to spill. Her hands slightly trembled as she clutched the plate tighter, feeling the room's stillness envelop her. She fought hard to keep her voice steady, to not let her fears and worries show. Naruto needed strength now, not more burdens. Her shoulders were tense, her posture rigid as she struggled to maintain composure. In that moment, with her eyes closed and her voice barely a whisper, Hinata's own vulnerabilities surfaced. Yet she stood strong, for him, because that's what friends do. They show up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. As the peak of the attack slowly subsided, Tenten continued to monitor Naruto closely. She was deeply worried but masked her concern with a calm exterior, knowing that showing her own distress might only worsen things for him. Naruto, talk when you are ready, she said after a while. She motioned to Hinata to cut the ramen cake and pour some juice. As Hinata moved the table in front of Naruto and placed a slice of cake and a glass of juice down, both Tenten and Hinata settled themselves on the floor across from him, mirroring his position. They sat in silence, waiting for Naruto to speak. In the silent apartment, with only the soft sound of their breathing filling the space. They were there for their friend, no matter how long it took for him to feel like himself again. System notification. Status update. Status. Panic attack removed. Player Naruto has stabilized. Emotional stress indicators have returned to baseline levels. Naruto felt an overwhelming weariness settle over him as he looked down at the ramen-shaped cake. Carefully, he picked up a piece and took a bite, feeling the simple act of eating grounding him slightly. Beside him, Hinata and Tenten did the same, and for a few moments, the room was filled with nothing but the sound of quiet chewing. The silence was a comforting blanket, softening the sharp edges of his emotions. I found out a lot about myself today. Naruto finally broke the silence, setting his juice down as he gathered the courage to share his burdens. What? That you like cross-dressing? Tenten attempted to joke, trying to lighten the mood, but her words fell flat, and she quickly looked down, embarrassed by her own awkwardness. Sorry, I thought a joke might lighten up the mood and. It would have if the joke was good, he retorted, a hint of a smirk tugging at his lips despite the heaviness in his heart. Hey, I can tell good jokes. What did you find, Naruto-kun? Naruto paused, the next words catching in his throat. He wasn't ready to reveal everything just yet, especially the part about being the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. That was a revelation that needed more courage than he felt he could muster at that moment. Gee, he started, then stopped, cleared his throat, and tried again. At the Hokage's office, I found out the name of my mother. Tenten and Hinata's eyes widened in unison. Kushina Uzumaki. The red-hot-blooded habanero. Tenten blurted out, recognition flashing in her eyes. You know her? Hinata asked. Naruto's hand reached out, gripping Tenten's shoulder. Please, tell me. Okay, let's go to my house. I need my journals. Before anyone could react, Naruto had summoned a shadow clone. In a swift motion, both he and the clone scooped up Hinata and Tenten, bridal style. Without further ado, they used the flash fist technique, rushing through the streets with a speed that left both girls startled and slightly disoriented. As they sped towards Tenten's house, Naruto's mind raced with thoughts of his mother. Who was she? What had she been like? And how had she lived her life that her name alone sparked recognition in his friend? Each question pounded in his chest like a drum, propelling him forward. Mr. Higurashi stood behind the counter of his weapon shop, arranging a set of kunai neatly in front of a customer. His movements were precise and calm, the way they always were when handling his babies. Suddenly, the door burst open, and Naruto, carrying Hinata and Tenten, rushed through. Hiden's eyes briefly followed them as they sped up to the living quarters above the shop. He had become accustomed to such bursts of energy from the young ninja, though he still wondered what urgent matter drove them today. You let your daughter be friends with the demon brat, the customer sneered. Mr. Higurashi's face remained impassive, his displeasure hidden behind a practiced neutral expression. He had long since learned to control his emotions in the face of ignorance and prejudice. How much for the kunai set? 10K, Mr. Higurashi responded, his voice steady. Huh, you are joking, the customer scoffed, disbelief etching his features. 20K. What? You can't be serious, the customer protested, his voice growing louder. 30K. Wait, is it because I called that brat for what he is? The customer's voice was accusatory now, his face turning red with anger. 70K. Keep your crumbly kunais to yourself, the customer spat out, turning to leave with a huff. Pathetic losers, Mr. Higurashi muttered under his breath, causing the customer to pause at the door. Ha, look, I am a chunin, okay. I can get this shop taken down. Fine, I'll sell you the kunai set, Mr. Higurashi said, his voice dangerously soft. That's what I am talking about. How much? 100K, Mr. Higurashi stated flatly, and before the customer could react, he moved swiftly, headbutting the man in the nose. Blood splattered, a stark contrast against the polished floor of the shop. You. Mr. Higurashi didn't hesitate, pulling a katana from under the counter and pointing it at the man's neck. Get the fuck out of my shop, or I'll make sure you wake up in the Mr. Chunin. The man gulped, his eyes wide as he saw lightning crackle along the blade, a clear display of chakra flow. Fear finally registered in his eyes, and he turned, stumbling out of the shop as fast as his legs could carry him. Mr. Higurashi sheathed his blade with a sigh, shaking his head slightly as he wiped the blood from the floor. His body relaxed now that the unpleasant encounter was over, but his mind was busy with concern. Why were the kids in such a hurry? In Tenten's cluttered room, filled with books and weapons, a noticeable target hung on the wall bearing a photo of Neji Hyuga and several embedded kunai. Hinata couldn't help but sweat drop at the sight. Meanwhile, Naruto tapped his foot impatiently. Okay, so when I was an academy student, I had a hobby of collecting all the stories and information about powerful kunoichi throughout the shinobi world from books or black market bounties that my father bought from ninjas, Tenten explained as she pulled out a giant journal from a stack nearby. The journal was worn at the edges, its cover a patchwork of dark leather and faded symbols. As she flipped through the pages, Naruto and Hinata saw a collection of bounty posters and entries detailing notable feats accomplished by these kunoichi. Ah, here it is, Tenten exclaimed, finally stopping at a page. She turned the journal towards Naruto, whose breath hitched as his eyes landed on a poster. The poster depicted a beautiful woman in her early 20s with a slender figure and fair skin. Her dark violet eyes were striking, and her dark red hair flowed past her knees, held up on one side of her face by a small black hairclip. What caught Naruto's attention most were the chains, chakra chains, flowing from her body. Tears began to well up in his eyes as his lips quivered. Mom, he whispered, his finger tracing the outline of the woman in the poster. The names below her image read: the red hot-blooded habanero, the bloody chain maiden, the crimson blade of death. So many aliases were given to Kushina Uzumaki, Tenten said, smiling warmly at Naruto's reaction. Your mother was an amazing woman, Hinata added, her voice filled with awe. Naruto nodded, wiping the tears from his face, then looked up with hopeful eyes. Can you tell me more? Tenten sighed softly, a hint of regret in her eyes. Unfortunately, I don't know much about her. She was an S-rank shinobi during the Third Great Shinobi War, and the majority of information about S ranks isn't well known. Hinata pointed at the stack of entries in the worn journal. But you have all these entries. Tenten sighed, her expression turning serious. That's the thing, I don't know what information is correct or not. Being an S-rank ninja means that many of the other nations want to know more about you. When you know information about a ninja, you have a better chance against them. Hence, during wars, Konoha would purposefully spread fake news about their S ranks. These entries exist, but I can't say how many of them are true, except for maybe one, she explained, her fingers pausing over a particular page. Naruto's eyes immediately locked onto hers. Tell me. Tenten nodded, flipping the journal back to a specific entry. This entire entry is what actually cemented her status as an S rank. During the war, Kurigakure was quite the problem for Konoha because of a shinobi who was able to transform into a giant three-tailed turtle that could vaporize mountains. Naruto and Hinata's eyes widened in disbelief. But Kushina Uzumaki was able to kill this shinobi, Tenten continued. They say that the moment a Konoha rescue squad came to Kushina, she had crucified the turtle on a mountain in the land of water just so Kurigakure could see. Naruto chuckled, the tension in his chest easing slightly as he looked back at the bounty poster of his mother. Emblazoned at the bottom was the reward. 1.5 billion ryo from Kurigakure. You were so awesome, Mom.